The authors and speakers. We had a great outlook for future Congress 3 next year.
And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution is not going to get that man today. No, because I'm going to get him.
This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It is Wednesday, January 16th, 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. With me is my co-host, my son, Joe Hagmann. Folks, you're about to hear 3 hours of uncensored, unbiased, just pure news and analysis, information that you need to know, that we need to talk about, we need to discuss. These are perilous times. And for those new to the program, folks, we broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us on the internet at HomelandSecurityUS.com, and you can watch us as well as we simulcast on high-definition video on Christians United Broadcasting Network. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you for your continued belief and continued trust in us as we talk about things that are very important to us, as we talk about the current events, as we analyze what we're going to be doing here in the coming days and what we need to do. And as we look at the news, not from a political agenda, bias, or whatever, but through the lens of a Christian, Judeo-Christian perspective. Now, with that, Joe, it's great to see you today here in the studio. We had a good day today, a productive day, I would say.
Yeah, we did. It was a very interesting day. I was home with my wife and watching the Obama-Biden press conference, and we're on video right now, and I couldn't gather up some children to come sit by me while we did the broadcast, but I wanted to because just to prove a point, Obama is taking a chapter out of Hitler in his book, Mein Kampf, and I will read a quote. "The state must declare the child to be the most precious treasure of the people. As long as the government is perceived as working for the benefit of the children, the people will happily endure almost any curtailment of liberty and almost any deprivation." Adolf Hitler. So, as Obama surrounded himself with a few children who wrote letters, and the NRA came out with a commercial that we're going to play for you, where the people on TV,
this has got a lot of
went
people
crazy.
Oh, man.
And it's not insulting to his children. It's asking that there is equality amongst all children.
Equality.
Whether
Equality.
people in government's children to poor people's children, which is what this country's about. Also today, we heard yesterday there was going to be 19 executive actions taken. Well, it ended up being 23. And this is something that we're going to need to really dig into because they look, the 23 provided things that were signed, the executive actions that were signed, look rather harmless at face value. And this is for a reason.
Yes.
Okay, they want to calm people down. We're not coming to get your guns, but there's a lot more going on besides these 23 executive orders, and we'll get into that first, I guess. So let's read these 23 executive actions.
And folks, if you haven't, you might have read them or you might have looked at them. It's important, though, for us to touch on each one of these, not just read them to you for the sake of reading them to you, because you can do that, but we need to just comment, and in the end, we'll tell you pretty much how, through our investigation, how things are going to be playing out. But so go ahead, Joe.
All right.
At your leisure there.
Number one, issue a presidential memorandum to require federal agencies to make relevant data available to the federal background check system. Okay, so they want to require federal agencies to make relevant data available to the federal background check system. Well, what is relevant data? We don't know. Number 2, address unnecessary legal barriers, particularly related to the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act that prevents states from making information available to background check systems. Yep. So health insurance, health information between you and your doctor is no longer private. 3, improve incentives for states to share information with background check systems. 4, direct the Attorney General, a.k.a. Fast and Furious holder, to review categories of individuals prohibited from having a gun to make sure dangerous people are not slipping through the cracks, that criminals would register or admit they have guns anyway. 5, propose rulemaking to give law enforcement the ability to run a full background check on an individual before returning a seized gun, basically stating that they can seize a gun regardless of what your standing as a citizen is, what your standing as a gun owner is, and do an extra check before returning a seized gun, and then make a determination if they'll even return it. And in the case of Larry in Buffalo, whose son is an ex-Marine or who did tours in Afghanistan, he had to give his weapons in when he came back, and he's never got them back, and he's not going to get them back. So we see that has been working behind the scenes already. 6, publish a letter from the ATF to federally licensed dealers providing guidance on how to run background checks for private sellers. 7, launch a national safe and responsible gun ownership campaign. Now, I wonder if it has something to do with this.
I've also asked the school board to make a part of every day some kind of anti-violence, anti-gun message. Every day, every school, at every level. One thing that I think is clear with young people and with adults as well is that we just have to be repetitive about this. It's not enough to simply have a catchy ad on a Monday and then only do it every Monday. We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
Maybe they want to brainwash you.
Indeed, that's from 1995.
Yeah, that's Eric Holder.
Eric Holder from 1995. All right.
And so he's saying there he wants to launch a campaign about responsible and safe gun ownership. Well, that's what we can expect. 8, review safety standards for gun locks and gun safes. Consumer Product Safety Commission. 9, issue a presidential memorandum to require federal law enforcement to trace guns recovered in criminal investigations. Guns recovered in criminal investigations should go into a police evidence room where they are held until they are used as evidence against the perpetrator in a crime. I don't see what would change or how that's relevant, but I'm sure they're, and we're going through these, we're reading these. We haven't been able to research each one and go into each one and look at what's really going on yet.
No, but we do have at the end of this, we do have kind of a summation based on. Now, I had a conversation with Greg Evenson today, and we kind of compared some notes, so we're going to go through that at the end of this, but go ahead.
All right. 10, release a Department of Justice report analyzing information on lost and stolen guns and make it widely available to law enforcement. So if you report your gun stolen, expect to be hassled. Number 11, nominate an ATF director. 12, provide law enforcement, first responders, and school officials with proper training for active shooter situations. This bothers me because they've been doing this for a long time. By the funding through the Department of Homeland Security, they've been running active shooter drills and situations for years, all over the nation. They did it on the day of Sandy Hook, and just to name one instance. 13, maximize efforts to prevent gun violence and prosecute gun crime. Well, what is maximize enforcement efforts? What are they doing? What haven't they been doing that they should be doing to prevent violence and prosecute gun crimes? That makes no sense to me. 14, issue a presidential memorandum directing the Centers for Disease Control to research the causes and prevention of gun violence. This one we talked about last night, the Center for Disease Control getting involved in the gun rights of Americans. It can't be a good thing.
Didn't we tell you that they were going to use the Affordable Care Act to implement some of these changes? Indeed, we did.
Yep. 15, direct the Attorney General to issue a report on the availability of the most effective use of new gun safety technologies and challenge the private sector to develop innovative technologies. 16, clarify that the Affordable Health Care Act, Obamacare, does not prohibit doctors asking their patients about guns in their homes. Well, it doesn't prohibit doctors from asking, but it doesn't say you need to answer either. So my advice would be it's none of your business. 17, release a letter to the health care providers clarifying that there's no federal law that prohibits them from reporting threats of violence to law enforcement authorities. This one bothers me. We talked about this last night. It's leaving health care providers. It is giving them a broad, if they don't like you, I mean, like you said, if there's a dispute with your bill and they see you have an attitude,
right,
they could call and report you, and then you could get your gun taken away. 18, provide incentives for school to hire resource officers. What are resource officers? How about police officers, if you really want to do something? 19.
Yeah, resource, and folks, that term, resource officers.
Yeah.
Just pay close attention to that.
And I'm just reading these, and then probably tomorrow or later in the show we'll try to go through more as more information comes out. 19, develop a model emergency response plan for schools, houses of worship, and institutions of higher education. Those are already in place to my knowledge. 20, release a letter to the state health officials clarifying the scope of a mental health service that Medicaid plans must cover. What does that have to do with guns? Release a letter to state health officials clarifying the scope of mental health services that Medicaid plans must cover. And it's weird. 21, finalize regulations clarifying essential health benefits and parity requirements with ACA exchanges. 22, commit to finalizing mental health parity regulations. 23, launch a national dialogue by Secretaries Sibelius and Duncan on mental health. Now, those are the 23 executive actions, or they're calling them actions, to reduce gun violence. Now, I want to ask the question, did any one of these 23 actions orders I read do anything to stop a psychopath bent on killing somebody, whether with a gun or with a stone, to do that? Will it stop that? Another big point that was brought up today, in New York, in the case of New York, where they're only allowing people with to have 7-round magazines. Well, it's just as quick. You can unload. I mean, you can bring as many magazines as you want, and quickly, in 2 seconds, you can exchange an empty magazine and refill it with a new one. Doesn't really do much. And there's a lot with the New York, a lot of other things with the New York gun laws we're going to get into. But that was the big story for today, was Obama surrounding himself with children. And he also called for legislative action to be taken, and that the Congress should pass an assault weapons ban and a national 10-bullet minimum or maximum ban.
That's exactly. There are a number of issues with this. A couple of things. Let me just start off by saying this, and I want to thank Linda for sending this to us, to our attention. What is taking place in front of our very eyes? We want to kind of paint the picture here. Preparation is part. Knowledge, of course, when you have knowledge, you can prepare, and this is part of it. But there is an attempt to divide this country, and it's taking place right before our very eyes. But Linda sent this to me. This is about one sheriff in Oregon. Folks, I don't know whether you heard this, saw this.
I briefly heard it thanks to somebody sending it to me or posting it in the chat room or Facebook.
All right. If you haven't, I intend, and God willing, after the show, I will be putting this up on our website, and the actual letter. This comes from the office of Sheriff Tim Mueller, Lynn County, Oregon. And this letter is dated 2 days ago, January 14th, 2013, and it's addressed to Vice President Joe Biden. And it says this: Dear Mr. Vice President, I am Sheriff Tim Mueller, elected twice by the citizens of Lynn County, Oregon, who have entrusted me with a noble cause to keep them and their families safe. My deputies and I take this responsibility very seriously, and like you, have sworn to support the Constitution of the United States. I take that oath equally as serious as protecting our citizens. I have worked for the people of Lynn County for over 28 years as a member of the Lynn County Sheriff's Office, as well as serving 3 years active duty as a military police officer in the U.S. Army, where I also swore a similar oath. In the wake of the recent criminal events, politicians are attempting to exploit the deaths of innocent victims by advocating for laws that would prevent honest, law-abiding Americans from possessing certain firearms and ammunition magazines. We are Americans. We must not allow, nor shall we tolerate, the actions of criminals, no matter how heinous the crimes, to prompt politicians to enact laws that will infringe upon the liberties of responsible citizens who have broken no laws. Any federal regulation enacted by Congress or by executive order of the President offending the constitutional rights of my citizens shall not be enforced by me or my deputies, nor will I permit the enforcement of any unconstitutional regulations or orders by federal officers within the borders of Lynn County, Oregon. In summary, it is the position of this sheriff that I refuse to participate or stand idly by while my citizens are turned into criminals due to the unconstitutional actions of misguided politicians. Respectfully, Sheriff Tim Mueller, Lynn County, Oregon. Now, Linda, I want to thank you for sending it to me. I did see it from a couple of other places as you did, Joe. You know, this is what we need to see take place all across the country, but it's not going to. Now, I told you, as Joe was reading the listing of executive orders, I talked to Greg Evenson today. And this was about a half hour, 45 minutes ago. Maybe, I guess about an hour ago, because we did talk for about a half hour. And I got to say this. He is hearing, right now, he's hearing that they're the same thing we're hearing. And to be clear, I don't like to say that. That's too much like Obama, but just so we're on the same page with this. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, BATFE, that organization, that leaderless organization, by the way, for the last 6 years had no leader, they are visiting gun stores. Now, he had talked to, I believe, 1 or 2 gun stores. I've talked to a couple. And these agents are requesting copies of the 4473, the forms 4473. And I told you this yesterday. But what they're doing is they're requesting copies of all of the forms on file at the gun stores that provide the information of the name, address, personal information of the gun purchaser, as well as the type of weapon purchased. Now, here's a new twist to this. In addition to the guns, they're also asking for any information about the purchasers of magazines, high capacity magazines. This is taking place in states and in areas of the country that have no ban on any type of magazine capacity, have no Nothing to do with anything at this point. It's not New York. It's various places in the Midwest. And that's number one. And another source, excuse me, another source on this, they are meeting, the Department of Homeland Security is reportedly meeting with various state police commissioners to organize a response to any type of blowback within the states. In other words, DHS is telling me, for example, I'll just use this as one example. DHS is telling the Ohio State Police or State Patrol, hey, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to coordinate a response in the event when our confiscation plans meets resistance, we are going to need to coordinate our response. This is DHS working with the state police. Now, Greg Evenson tonight had said that, and I'm not going to go through everything, but he said that there is about a 1/3 to maybe even as high as a 40% ratio of police officers in various departments who will not cooperate in any type of confiscation. Now, what I just told you with respect to the copying of the 4473s and also the meeting between the DHS and the various states, that was confirmed. And I'm not sure if I spoke about this yesterday. Everything is pretty much a blur. So if it sounds like you've heard this before, I apologize. But we're confirming additional information. They are expecting, DHS is expecting the confiscation of weapons. Still, even after today, still, they're expecting to take part in the confiscation of weapons.
I have some news on the DHS.
Okay, but now the last thing, though, is the 1/3 or the 40% of the police who are not going to participate in the unlawful orders, according to sources that Greg talked to, those positions are going to get filled by I guess one would call it the Indianapolis model. At various times, there are numerous people, foreign officers cycling through, roving or circulating programs of law enforcement training. So we'll say law enforcement officers from Russia, from Chile, from Argentina, whatever, will come into the United States and train with the law enforcement in the United States. What the intent appears to be at this point is to replace the 1/3 or 40% of the police officers who refuse to take part in the gun confiscation. That is yet to take place, but will. To replace them with these foreign officers who have already trained. And some of these have trained in Iraq, Afghanistan as well. So in the information that, according to what Mr. Evenson had said, was the force that will be meted out is not going to be soft. It's going to be the resistors, anyone resisting is going to be met with lethal force. Now,
anyone resisting the confiscation?
Yes. You have to ask yourself, how did we get from the talk of 19 executive orders that were talking about confiscation to 23 seemingly innocuous or toothless orders, back to the confiscation issue, and then the plans by DHS talking about the confiscation? How did we seemingly bounce from one wall to another and then back to the same wall and back to the other wall again? It seems like conflicting information.
Yeah. Today, the DHS announced they're going to expand and formalize coordination on gun control efforts. Janet Napolitano, who will remain the head of the Homeland Security Department, said in a release statement Wednesday that she was proud to support the Obama administration's effort to combat gun violence in our country. Here's more of what her statement included. In the aftermath of the tragic Newtown shooting, the Department of Homeland Security, together with the Department of Justice, the FBI, are working to identify measures that could be taken to reduce the risk of mass casualty shootings. In the coming days, DHS will expand and formalize coordination of ongoing efforts intended to prevent future mass casualty shootings, improve preparedness and strengthen security and resilience in schools and other potential targets. DHS will work with partners at all levels of government to address 5 critical areas intended to reduce the risk of a mass casualty shooting in the United States: prevention, protection, response, education, and research and evaluation. The DHS will work with law enforcement to refresh and expand the implementation of a nationwide public awareness effort. Remember this? If you see something, say something.
That's right. That's right.
This is a critical issue that requires immediate attention, and I look forward to supporting the President and this administration as we move ahead. So prepare for if your neighbor sees you with a gun and does not like guns, they might call the Department of Homeland Security.
And to my family, to our family of listeners, because everyone listening to this broadcast, we consider family. Please do not be. Please use your utmost discretion about what you have, whether it's food, whether it's. This might sound even anti-Christian almost, but it's not. It's using discernment. Please do not share information with other people, whether it's your neighbor or your cousin, second cousin, unless they are a part of your larger plan of operation. What we need to do at this point, and this is so important, because what the enemy is doing is they are coordinating through their multiple agencies a response to resistance from confiscation. So what that is telling us is their ultimate goal is confiscation of weapons. So what we need to do in response to that, in anticipation to that, is to form groups of like-minded people, if you can, if you are in that position. And we know we have listeners out there who are alone, not just lonely, but alone. Now, Joe and I are working on a way right now to help you. If you are alone, you have no one around you, no family, no friends, we are going to be attempting to collect. I don't want to scare people by saying that word collect, but just take like a first name in a city, at least at first, or an area, and take these names, like the first name in an area, and then try to match people up. Kind of like a matchmaker service, but for like-minded people with respect to self-preservation. I don't know all the particulars. This is what we're trying to figure out. We're trying to work out, but this is what you need to do. So in addition to the people that have others, please do so. But just because you're listening to this and you're looking around and you're saying, "Hey, I'm all by myself. What about me?" We're thinking about you as well. So because our motto is we don't leave any family member behind.
Yeah, everybody who sent us emails, Facebook messages that haven't been returned. I've read most of the Facebook messages. I've been able to return a couple today, and I'll continue to do as best as I can in returning messages. But we are praying for everybody out there, especially our listeners, whether live or not, in the chat room or archived or whatever. You guys are always in our prayers because we do need you and we need each other. And this is a time of the most uncertainty, as far as safety is concerned, that I've ever lived through as an American. Also today, Governor Perry said on Obama's executive actions. He released the following statement regarding these actions. The Vice President's committee was appointed in response to the tragedy in Newton, but very few of his recommendations had anything to do with what happened there. Guns require a finger to pull the trigger. The sad young man who did that in Newton was clearly hunted down by demons, and no gun law could have saved the children in Sandy Hook from this terror. This is evil prowling in the world. It shows up in our movies, video games, online fascinations, and finds its way into vulnerable hearts and minds. As the free people, let us choose what kind of people we will be. Laws, the only readout of secularism, will not suffice. Let us all return to our places of worship and pray for help. Above all, let us pray for our children. In fact, the piling on the political left and their cohorts in the media to use this massacre of little children to advance a pre-existing political agenda that would not have saved those children disgusts me personally. The Second Amendment to the Constitution is a basic right of a free people and cannot or will not be abridged by the executive power of this or any other president. Another surprising quote from somebody I, don't really approve of everything he's done, but taking a stand here is definitely something we need. Also, Marco Rubio said, for criticizing the president, prompting for his gun control measures and abusing his executive powers, he went on to say that the press conference guarantees whatever weight his office holds to promote his agenda. That's what he said about Obama. And Rubio warned Obama's use of executive power was troubling. Making matters worse is that President Obama is again abusing powers by imposing his policies via executive fiat instead of allowing them to be debated in Congress. President Obama's frustration with our republic and the way it works doesn't give him a license to ignore the Constitution. Obama has targeted the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens instead of seriously addressing the real underlying causes of such violence. And in another article, disarming Americans while arming terrorists. This was a good one. While the White House was busy drafting proposals to ban assault rifles, the last of the regulations imposed on Saudi travel to the United States after September 11 were being taken apart. While some of the government officials were busy planning how to disarm Americans, other officials were negotiating the transfer of F-16s to Abrams tanks to the Muslim Brotherhood-run Egypt. Obama is unwilling to trust Americans with AR-15, but is willing to trust a genocidal terrorist group with Abrams tanks and F-16 fighter jets. The F-16's M61 Vulcan cannon can fire 6,000 rounds a minute, and the 146-pound warhead, its HARM missiles can do a lot more than put a few dents in a brick wall. And it goes on from there. And we know this. Obama has been arming rebels in Libya and Egypt, in Qatar. It came out that there was an arms shipment to Qatar. And if you guys remember last summer, the government of Qatar shot down a bunch of protesters, innocent protesters. And those were all done.
Unarmed, with the weapons that we provided to them. And that's important to understand.
And what about him surrounding himself with children? How about he surrounds himself with the bodies of the dead children that are from his drone war policies? Wouldn't that be something? It would be something indeed. And really, I want to say this. I went from praying for Obama at the start of the press conference to swearing at my TV. And I've told a couple people today, that's not a good place to be, trying to be calm and relaxed, and
I know some of you out there did that. Look, I know because I could, I shouldn't say I could feel like,
but thinking of all the countries this man has dropped authorized drone strikes on that has killed thousands of people, innocent people, including hundreds of children, to surround himself with children as an excuse to take away Americans' rights is not acceptable, and it's very infuriating, and it's hard to put words into the way I feel about it that aren't sinful, I guess.
One thing I want to say, Judy McLeod from Canada Free Press wrote, Obama, the children's savior champion of partial birth abortion. You might think, well, what does this have to do with gun control? What does this have to do with what happened today? And Judy writes this. Young as they are, those with baby brothers and sisters at home would be absolutely traumatized to know that as a senator, Obama championed partial birth abortion, which is the brutal slaughter of babies who actually make it through abortion. So if you can imagine this, a baby that survives a late trimester abortion and survives is to be killed. President Obama voted against the Born Alive Infant Protection Act 4 different times. Horrifyingly voting against protecting babies who survived abortion and voting in favor of leaving them to die. Now, and Judy writes, while the children props of today would never have known, it was the same Obama standing among them, getting the chuckles and laughter when reading out some of their letters in what must be the most hypocritical bid of all time to champion the lives of children. You know, Joe and I watched a little bit of, we channel surfed here in the studio through the television monitors, and we looked at various stations, and of course MSNBC they were absolutely livid about the NRA.
Let's play that now.
Well, let's do this right now.
Are the president's kids more important than yours? Then why is he skeptical about putting armed security in our schools when his kids are protected by armed guards at their school? Mr. Obama demands the wealthy pay their fair share of taxes, but he's just another elitist hypocrite when it comes to a fair share of security. Protection for their kids and gun-free zones for ours.
That commercial, what was the 30-second spot, elicited cries of racism, of people saying that crossed a certain line, that commercial, that it was absolutely, they were horrified. Everyone was horrified on the progressive side.
How dare they attack his children and bring him into this and use it as political bait to advance their pro-killing agenda. I mean, it's just ridiculous. These people, we were watching, we were doing stuff most of the day, but we had a chance to catch the end of, who's it, Al Sharpton?
Al Sharpton, which, my eyes.
You know, his whole play cartoons. That's not news what he talks about. It's just, empty rhetoric.
Well, and here's my point, and I think our point too is, and Judy wrote it very eloquently at Canada Free Press. But
are people that dumb that they watch that and agree with this guy?
Joe, I think so. But the hypocrisy though, with respect to the progressives, Obama brings out 4 children in their parents. And of course, there were people in the audience and or in the room there. But the 4 children who had allegedly written letters to the president since Sandy Hook, they were standing to his left, to Obama's left, and Obama, again, elicited laughter from these children, from the parents and from the crowd, by his remarks, But Rush Limbaugh had said something today, and I didn't hear it. I just heard that they blow back from it, where he called them human shields. Well, Judy says the children, figuratively used as human shields in today's White House photo op, wouldn't know, again, that Obama had repealed the pro-life Mexico City policy, and that by doing this, he made groups that perform and promote abortion eligible for U.S. foreign aid funds from American taxpayers, including the parents standing behind the children. So how many of those kids around Obama knew that Planned Parenthood, their funding jumped from 33% to nearly 50%, well over $487 million in taxpayer funds, your money, folks, our money, which now goes to this abortion giant under this particular administration. This is almost $500 million that American families are forced to pay in our tax dollars, no matter how hard we struggle, and no matter how much we object. The smiles of those kids that were used today by Obama, the beaming pride, the beating pride of the parents. Judy writes that they would fade if they contemplated what Obama has really done in his time, and what he's really done to soldiers who risk their lives to protect citizens in foreign countries, and just what he's done with the drones, as Joe said, and the whole of government is hypocritical, whether it's right or the left. They're both exploiting tragedy. Both sides are exploiting tragedy. Both sides are exploiting children, and it's got to stop. At least it's just got to stop. We have to stop it. And this is something that Hitler did, Stalin did. Look at the pictures, folks. Go through and look at the photographs of Hitler and Stalin and surrounded by children, and that's always how the message is relayed. It's for the children, but it's never about the children. It's about the end game objective. Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, Joe, once again, what Greg Evenson had told me today, and you heard part of it. The last 5 weeks, efforts have been ramped up to really involve all areas all agencies of the federal government to come after the people with guns, but not only the guns, but the people themselves. And this is something that Steve Quayle had said. And the federal government does plan, and this is one more piece of information that you need to know. The federal government is planning to provide money to the individual states, but that money comes with strings attached for various purposes. But if you fight this gun legislation in various forms, such as I believe what the Kentucky governor had recently done or is doing, then you will not only will you not get the money, but they will be punished. The states will be punished by the federal government in various ways.
States are supposed to be in charge of the federal government. It's not supposed to be the other way around.
Well, in one fell swoop today, what you've witnessed today, an attack on obvious attack on the Second Amendment, a swipe at the First, and certainly a swipe at the 10th. And are these 23 executive actions on guns? Is this going to be a day in history that we're going to go back to and say, wow, this changed things?
Right.
No, but what's coming will.
I want to say this. My wife, Laura, was watching that press conference with me and knew that there was going to be talk about executive orders for guns. But when she saw the kids and what they were doing, even though she's not, paying attention to everything, she said he's using, those kids for sympathy to try to justify what he's doing. And it was an astute observation from her, and I was surprised to hear it. And hopefully a lot of normal people caught that as well and saw it the same way, instead of looking at it like, oh, looking and protecting these children. Because if you think Obama cares about children, yours, other people's from other countries, he doesn't. And it's obvious by his policies, through the drones, through the illegal wars, through everything that he's been pushing. We have an article today. I saw this. I thought this was interesting. Vaccine court awards millions to 2 children with autism.
Now think about this, folks. And I know we're kind of drifting from one topic to another. Yeah. Well, you know what? Before you get into that, let me just finish the gun issue, with your indulgence, if I may. I had received a lot of emails today about the press conference and about the gun issue, and about various points in history. And I just want to bring something up very quickly here. On April 19th, 1775, a British expeditionary force actually set up to capture and destroy guns and ammunition believed stored by American colonists at Lexington and Concord in Massachusetts. To counter the British action, the American colonists mobilized their militias and, using guns kept in their homes, they defeated the British forces and forced them to retreat back to Boston. The British believed it was perfectly acceptable for the government to be armed, but private citizens should never be armed. Now, this is back in 1775, because they might challenge the actions of the British government. They thought it reasonable for the British to confiscate the colonists' guns and ammunition because the colonists were a threat. The colonists believed that private citizens should have access to firearms and defend themselves in the case that the government became too tyrannical. And we've forgotten the lessons that the colonists fought the battles of Lexington and Concord to prevent the British from disarming us, the American colonists. The colonists' intent was that never again would only the government have access to guns and ammunition, and the American people would be stripped naked of the right to own and bear arms and left without the means to protect themselves and their interests. Now that very same issue arises, and it threatens the freedom of our people. And once more, our government, this administration, this regime is making an all-out effort. And by the way, this includes your lawmakers, an all-out effort to seize the guns and ammunition out of our homes. And the British attempt, by the way, the British attempt to disarm the colonists is one of the actions that led to the Revolutionary War, and later on was the result or caused the adoption of the Second Amendment, which reads, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." Folks, people have forgotten. We've forgotten. People have forgotten that the clear purpose of the Second Amendment is not to restrict the private citizens' ownership of guns and ammunition, but to restrict the possible tyranny of the central government. And what has gone on for the last century? The centralization of the federal government, the centralization of our government. And the discussion today in Washington and what we've seen, it comes down to, should the American people, shall we have the right to bear arms and protect our interests, or will the government be able to kind of circumvent that, to go around the Constitution and enforce the government's will upon the American people, violating the very founding documents and principles? Well, this is all being done under the subterfuge of being helpful and protective to our citizens, and of course, the children, and those politicians in charge of finding a way to reduce gun violence. Well, they talk about curbing violence, and they talk about making video games less violent, closing loopholes in the gun show loopholes and such, eliminating these high capacity magazine rifles capable of firing it. The list goes on and on, but we must never be fooled. We must recognize that we are again fighting the battle of Lexington and Concord all over again. And as Greg Evenson said, look, this is coming. This is coming. We did not dodge any bullets. The end result here, it's going to be the Battle of Lexington and Concord all over again. And actions by our leaders in Congress and the White House certainly indicate they don't trust the American people with guns. So restricting private gun ownership must be good, and restricting the government's firearms ownership is bad. So the people of America cannot be trusted to own and handle and to carry guns and ammunition. And this is where we're at today. And I just wanted to throw that in there because a big part of our American history was the Battle of Lexington and Concord, April 19th, 1775. That's where it comes from. So, that said, knowing what we know now, and folks, don't forget that, April 19th, 1775, Lexington and Concord in Massachusetts. The battle, Second Amendment, the reason for it.
Yeah. I wanted to hit on this, something we missed earlier in the week. This is from Washington Examiner. New pay-per-mile scheme would boost taxes 250%. An on-again, off-again move by the Obama administration to scrap the federal gas tax in favor of a pay-per-mile fee would boost the Americans as high as the tab to Americans as high as 250%, raising their current tax of 18.4 cents a gallon to as high as 46 cents, according to a new government study. But that and tax increase, said the Government Accountability Office study, the governor's highway fund is going to go dry. One reason the fund is going broke, President Obama's push for fuel-efficient cars has resulted in better mileage and fewer stops at the pump. The GAO study is just the latest review of federal spending that paints a grim picture of the nation's infrastructure. Just keeping spending at the current levels, the GAO said would require a near doubling of the gas tax to 32 cents. That would jump as high as 46 cents should the federal government add spending to fix crumbling infrastructure and build new roads.
See, while our eyes are trained in Washington and the gun grab, see, things still do happen like this.
And I got a Q alert. This has to do with the currency wars. There was another article today that Russia was warning of currency wars. And it says this, if you guys hadn't listened to our show from last Friday, go ahead and listen to it. But I'll read the excerpt here for the currency war alert and why treasuries are rallying for no reason. He says, we are in serious trouble. Now, follow closely to what I'm about to say. We have never recovered from September 2008 crash. All this talk about a double dip is almost a moot point, as we never called out of the dip in the first place. The economy is as it has been for the last 2 years, heading down no matter what all the talking heads on radio and TV say. For you see, in trying to perform the same techniques which have applied with the crash of 1929 and 1933, the Fed has exhausted its cache of stimulus tools. They have done nothing. They have nothing left. After pumping trillions into stimulus plans and trillions to improve balance sheets of the too-big-to-fail banks, they have accomplished one thing. They have undermined treasuries. Treasuries are the very thread that is holding the economy together, and now these policies have been morphed them into a new and improved toxic asset. Every world economy knows that they are overvalued and know that their yields are mediocre, and still no one in the mainstream is talking or ever rails against or even exposes them. This is a world carte blanche walk on eggshells around treasuries as if it were a financial nuke with a tripwire and a timer, a bomb, if you will. History shows us a pattern in how this financial Hiroshima goes off, and it begins like this. There will be a slight and sudden rise in the price of necessary commodity like oil. This will send tremors through the treasury yields. Treasury managers will sell off their allocations and go to the commodity.
Wait, let's not go too fast on this. What was the first thing? Because I think this is important, because I think we're seeing the stage being set for this now. The first one just a second ago. The gas, the commodities, okay. A
slight and sudden rise in the price of a necessary commodity like oil.
Okay, so, all right, keep that in mind as we go through the rest, because these are going to happen. It's my understanding these are going to happen in consecutive order. It's going to be okay. So,
and what he said about Japan, we talked about last night. That came out in a CNBC article, CSNBC or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah, folks, if you have not heard Friday's show, and I've gotten emails saying, oh, it was a great show, and some people have said, well, I heard it, but I didn't hear anything like really revelatory in it. Listen carefully, because yesterday we did go over the yuan, I believe it was, the Japanese currency, and now this. Okay, so. All right, so what we're watching for, the first thing, is I interrupted you there, I apologize. The first thing is like a rise in a commodity, for example, oil. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so it will send tremors through treasury yields.
Okay.
Treasury managers will sell off their allocations and go into the commodity, for example, oil, in order to grab a profit. I guarantee they will sell their treasuries, as it is the primary asset that many of them can sell. This will trigger the Fed to step in and buy the dumb treasuries as they are trying to stave off deflation by keeping low yields and cheaply funded quantitative easing. The Fed knows that the bond market senses a treasury bubble, and once again they turn into the printing presses to buy everything treasury.
So they're going to flood the market with dollars
to calm the markets and create asset price stability.
Okay, it's through this flooding of digital currency or fiat, whatever. Right. Okay.
The zombie too big to fail banksters smell blood in the water and begin to dump their obscene amount of treasury notes. You will see these living dead institutions were never nationalized, but got the best parts of nationalization: total liquidity, stimulus money, and easing of accounting and regulatory rules. The flip side was the Fed required that they purchase U.S. treasuries. You see, buying up of the treasuries allowed the balance sheets to look well-funded and monetized, all the while hiding the toxic assets that were being spin-honed off the books by the Fed since 2008.
So they're actually taking, that's right, these are off-balance sheets.
Yes.
Okay. So what you, okay.
Asset managers are not stupid. They know the U.S. is in much worse shape than Greece. They know the treasury bubble. There is a treasury bubble. So when these managers see the mass buying of treasuries by the Fed and the mass dumping by the zombie banks, it will be their signal to get out of Dodge.
All right.
The zombie, too big to fail banks and asset managers have dumped their toxic treasuries, will look to place and park their newfound cash. Now, where might you think they will put all that cash? Into commodities.
So it's a one big circle of, it's a Ponzi scheme. It's a one big circle of nothing.
Yes. From precious and individual metals, oil, food, staples will all skyrocket in price, catching the American public with their pants down. Commodities will be the only safe haven to go, and it is when the American public will get the first taste of hyperinflation, and it tastes like gasoline when the price surges past $150 a barrel in 1 week, equaling to $10 a gallon of gas.
Okay, now do you think for a moment we're going to see $10? I mean, in the short term, I don't, but in that scenario, we could see it jump, skyrocket.
We're going to see hyperinflation.
Well, yes, but as a part of a greater assault on the economy and an assault on the U.S. dollar, especially if the free flow of oil from the Middle East is interrupted. But what he's talking about is something totally different that I never thought about.
Yeah, and we're going to have to queue up the important clips from when he was on.
Yes.
Put it together and put it with these articles, because today there was the second article I saw. Yesterday was about Japan trying to manipulate the value of its currency and getting away from the dollar. And the title of that was Currency Wars. So this is something we definitely need to keep our eye on. Also, update. One malicious virus shuttered U.S. power plant, says the DHS.
Now think about this, folks.
A computer virus attacked a turbine control system at a U.S. power company last fall when a technician unknowingly inserted an infected USB computer drive into the network, keeping the plant offline for 3 weeks, according to a report posted by the U.S. government website. The Department of Homeland Security did not identify the plant, but said the criminal software, which is used to conduct financial crimes such as identity theft, was behind the incident. It was introduced by an employee of a third-party contractor that does business with the utility, according to the agency. The DHS reported the incident, which occurred in October, along with a second involving a more sophisticated virus, on its website as cyber experts gather at a high-profile security conference in Miami known as S4 to review the emerging threats against power plants, water utilities, and other parts of the criminal infrastructure. Let me say this right here. If there's any kind of cyber attack that takes money out of your bank, that shuts down these power companies, it is directly a result from the United States government doing it itself.
I believe that to be the case because of the way of the way everything is structured.
There is no way that you could take down a power grid by your computer at home hacking into another agency.
Well,
I would say no way.
There's right.
They work on a separate whole
technically
the intranet. They work on a separate network than www.
Okay, right. That's technically accurate. you would have to have complicity from the inside in order to do that, and there's a whole big thing. But you're correct, technically correct. You could not do that. It's going to be from the inside. If a cyber attack is going to hit your bank and your bank account's going to be cleaned out, it's not going to be from necessarily from a foreign national group. If a utility company is hit, it's not going to be necessarily from a foreign national group. It's going to be, if it is, there's going to be complicity from within, and people have to understand that. The next 2 hours, we'll be looking in the second hour. I'm just going to touch on a couple of emails to answer a few questions.
And we're going to take your calls again for the rest of the show, because we want to hear what you guys have to say and how you feel about what's going on and where you think this is going and what we can do to maybe prevent anything from further happening more. We'll be right back.
Hi, folks. Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eilena Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com. Or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
You better wake up fast and listen to this, America. The Obama campaign has launched attack squads disguised as truth teams dedicated to intimidating and silencing all political dissent carried over the internet that criticizes the Marxist Obama. Truth squads specifically focused on covering up Obama's endless trail of lies, corruption, and subversion, and using the Gestapo power of our own government to police and censor the internet and shut down websites that dare to carry the real truth about Obama's Marxist coup. Remember the names of these Gestapo-style agencies at work right there in your neighborhood: KeepingHisWord.com, KeepingGOPHonest.com, and AttackWatch.com. KGB, SS, and Gestapo-style police-state gangster organizations at work to silence the important voices of patriot dissent, some of which have already been shut down by Obama's orders. Adolf Hitler would have been proud. We're the 21st century Tea Party patriots.
Hold on to your seat. The Hagmann and Hagmann flight is now taking off. Doug and Joe Hagmann have cleared the runway of TSA agents, jihadists, political crackpots, and global elitists. Now get ready for some real news. Here they are, Doug and Joe Hagmann.
Welcome back, folks, to hour number 2 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for this edition. This is the 16th day of January 2013. I want to thank everyone for listening to the program, for your prayers, for helping us stay on the air through your monetary contributions. I want to thank you so very much, because it's a drain to really keep us going. But we are attempting to be very good stewards and We thank you for that. We thank you for your presence. We thank you for telling others about this program. Downloaded in 41 countries, which is phenomenal. I received a couple of emails today. We had talked yesterday about the Sandy Hook shooting. Let me just say this. The Sandy Hook shooting in the press conference today, 33 days separated the two events. Now, to most people, you might say, well, what does that have to do with anything? If people understand that the controllers, the shadow government, the people really behind the power behind the faces, believe in various things, from numerology to other odd, weird things that you and I would never even think twice about, you understand it's an important distinction, an important number. And even the repetition of the 33 days, important distinction, important number. And even the number 19 said multiple times about the executive orders, but yet it was 23. But again, these things signal others to specific things. Now, I'm not going to get into that because, again, you might say, well, what does that have to do with anything, really? Are you really serious you're going to get into that? No, I'm not going to get into it. But know that it's not really important what we believe. Just like the Islamic terrorists, it's not important what we believe. It's important what they believe, what they think is the truth, because they act on it. It's their game plan. But to Jeff and others who wrote me and saying, I understand you're going to be talking about Sandy Hook today from your research that you folks have done. We have done the research. We have gone into numerous areas.
Yeah, and I got to say this. We really need to be careful here, because this is a CIA operation set up to curtail freedom of speech, freedom of the Internet, and the sharing of information. That's the end game here, in my opinion. Well, after looking at everything, and there is many things wrong with what happened at Sandy Hook, whether the families know it or not, whatever the circumstances may be.
Yeah, I mean, children certainly died. There were things that did happen there. Obviously, bad things involving guns and involving a very disturbed, mentally ill person.
Yeah, and there's a YouTube video that is going viral. It's about a half hour. It's the one you and me watched.
Yeah, I saw it.
It was compilation. Anderson Cooper has been going on the offensive, trying to say how ridiculous these people are who are talking about this being a hoax.
Well, a conspiracy, not a hoax. I think that we have to be specific in our terminology here. They are going after anyone who believes that Sandy Hook in any way, shape, or form was a conspiracy of any type, whether it be for an attack on the Second Amendment or for whatever reason. That if you think any part of Sandy Hook was a conspiracy, then you're wrong, or you're a fool, or you're a lunatic, you're crazy. So you're right. Getting back to what you were saying, Joe, we have to be very, very careful, because there are certain aspects of this that there's information out there being purposely planted for people like us to grab onto and say, hey, look at what we found. Well, we all know that when an incident happens, where do you find, folks, the most important information and the most accurate information? When a situation takes place, you find the most accurate, most important information, most relevant information in the immediate, as the situation is unfolding. Now, that's a double-edged sword, too, because you could say, well, the first reports are always wrong, and the cloud of war, you have to wait until the dust settles, and so on and so forth. Well, that, to a large extent, that is true. But when you know how to pick through the first reports and understand, when you're able to look at the first reports and discern what is being said and done, you cannot change the reports closest to the incident. I mean, it's difficult to take that out of the mix. I mean, you can go back and change it to be sure, but if you captured it contemporaneous to the incident, then that's your best evidence. And we have some of that, and we're looking at it from that respect. And we're seeing things specifically planted out there by, I would say, government agencies, or certainly agencies that have that ability for the purpose of taking researchers, internet researchers, on rabbit trails, and then I would say, suspect from what you said, Joe, to discredit them in the end. So before we come out and jump out and say, look, this is what we found, we're doing this very methodically. So Jeff and others that wrote in about this, we're not going to be talking too much about this tonight, except to mention that we believe that there are a lot of things wrong with Sandy Hook. We understand it. We understand the areas of vulnerability, and we are approaching this with an abundance of caution. So when we do finally provide this,
because like you said, too many clues were left, too many things were put out there, inconsistencies.
Yeah,
almost like they intended it to be presented as a falsehood, what happened, in order to turn around and clamp down on free speech, as I said. There are multiple agendas that can be carried out through one incident. And the amount of information we have, and that is conflicting for something that would be so nationally broadcast and publicized and used as we see to further the agenda of Obama and what he did today. And, there is way more to this than we even know right now. So that's why we're holding back. But we're going to cover this extensively when we have the information and we feel it is factual and accurate.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and it's very important to understand that we're trying to avoid the pitfalls and the traps that are intentionally set out there for researchers, and then once again to have that blow up in our faces, and then not only that, but be responsible for providing misinformation to you, and we don't want to do that. So that's it. Now there's a few more emails here. One from I'll just say B. I'm still not sure how to pronounce that first name. Saying that we're all angry and justifiably so about what's going on, what went on today. And Joe, this is to you too. You mentioned your anger tonight, and you're justified according to this listener, B. And I apologize for not pronouncing your entire name. You should not be calm. You should not be cool and collected. You're, of course, are mature beyond your years, according to this writer, and loves listening to you and likes your show. This writer says, I'm reminded of something that happened many years ago, and it's helping my stance today. Maybe it can help be of help to someone else. I went through this person, kind of write something personal here, but divorce. I just want to see if I should read this here. Well, let's just say this. Anger is indeed warranted for what's taking place. And we should just take a look at how we... and anger, by the way, does... Maybe I shouldn't have started reading this on the air. I'm looking through this, and I'm just not sure how much this person would want me to go through this.
Well, you don't have to go.
No, I'm going to say this, but I want to thank you very much for that email. And Joe's got it. We're just going to leave it at that. How's that for live radio? We're just pros, aren't we? I'm just a pro, I'll tell you. And folks, by the way, if you have a chance, check out CanadaFreePress.com and HomelandSecurityUS.com. On our websites, we have, on those two websites, HomelandSecurityUS.com and CanadaFreePress.com, there is a new article today, that went up today, entitled Understanding the Obama Conspiracy and U.S. Takeover. And I think there's some important information in there. And if you want to, you can share it on Facebook and also comment on that article at Canada Free Press. I think, once again, the title is Understanding the Obama Conspiracy and U.S. Takeover. I think you'll find that pretty interesting. And it does kind of tie some things together with the globalist takeover of our country. And also, it does touch on the identity. The identity of Obama. I think I'm starting to lose my voice here, which some people will say is a good thing. But it does touch on the identity and lineage of Obama, the parentage of Obama, and the global takeover of the United States. And I think it's a good read. So, CanadaFreePress.com, Understanding the Obama Conspiracy and U.S. Takeover.
All right,
Joe, bail me out here, will you?
Going back to this article, Vaccine Court awards millions to 2 children with autism. The Federal Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, better known as Vaccine Court, has just awarded millions of dollars to 2 children with autism for pain and suffering and lifelong care for their injuries, which together could cost tens of millions of dollars. The government did not admit that the vaccine caused autism, at least in one of the children. Both cases were unpublished, meaning information is limited and access to medical records and other exhibits is blocked. Much of the information presented here comes from the documents found at the Vaccine Court website. Some observers will say the vaccine induced a brain disease documented in both children. It is unrelated to the autism spectrum disorder, ASD. Others will say there's plenty of evidence to suggest otherwise. What's more, the cases fit a pattern of other petitions in which courts ruled or the government conceded that vaccine had caused these brain disorders, which in turn produced permanent injury, including symptoms of autism and ultimately an ASD diagnosis.
Joe, let me ask you this, and folks, I'm going to throw this out there to you folks. Now, Alex Jones has been on the forefront of this vaccine issue for many years, as Dr. Joyce Riley, I believe, and others. What's your take on this? I mean, we all say we should not. It's often said that the vaccines often cause more harm than good. For example, there are 3 different types of the flu making the rounds. The CDC or whoever's in charge of that, they've identified 2 of the forms. So making the third, or one of the components for the third type of flu, there is none. So you're only being vaccinated against 2 of the 3 strains of flu that are out there. But what's the truth behind the flu vaccines, and what's the truth behind the other vaccines? Are they? You just read an article there that says the vaccine caused the autism. Am I hearing that correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Of two children. But is that? Again, I hear Alex Jones talk about this, and of course Dr. Oz says, well, everyone should be vaccinated, but he wouldn't give it to his own children.
Yeah, officially the document's sealed.
All right.
But they obviously awarded these people money, and that usually is admitting wrongdoing, and we know. I just went through an article last week, and let me see if I still have it. 40 children were paralyzed in, I forget which country it was, in Africa, from vaccines that were from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Right.
And there are numerous studies, and you guys can do the research on this, about the levels of mercury, the levels of...
well, wasn't one formaldehyde? Didn't you say that yesterday, or
Savage?
Savage. That's right.
But yeah, these vaccines, as you said, are a roll of the dice. They do not guarantee that you're going to not get the flu. In fact, that you have a more chance of getting a flu because of the different strands of the flu.
That's right. That was what I was remembering and recalling was from the Savage clip about the...
And to make it worse, what they're doing is making a no refusal policy for a lot of nurses and doctors having to get the flu shot or risk being fired, which is forced inoculation. And the people who are doing this are the ones who are so pro-discrimination and, the loving side of the government, as we are told, the one that wants to save us from the gun violence. It's just ridiculous.
Well, it brings me to the question: are all vaccines equally bad? And that's a serious question, because
I wouldn't trust anything that the government tries to inject into me. Even if I was sick and they said it would save me, I probably wouldn't take it.
Well, okay.
How can you trust these people? Look what they've done. Well, look what they continue to do. They don't care.
All right.
Well, they don't care about human life, not one bit. These people feed off the fear and the death they create.
Okay, and folks, and I'm getting message here too. I've seen the videos. I have watched the videos from Prison Planet and from other sources that have been featured on InfoWars and Prison Planet. So I understand that. I guess my question is, from a reasonable point of view now, okay, are we looking at, what are we looking at here? Is this indeed, are all of the vaccines, are they part of this eugenics agenda, or are they part of something nefarious, all of them, or are there some that we should
no. When you have a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation who openly admit they're eugenicists coming out and being the number one funder, of these vaccines, run. Don't take the vaccine. It's crazy.
All right.
And I got a clip here that we didn't get to yesterday about what Bill Gates is doing. I thought the 47-second clip. It's called Bill Gates, the Hurricane Tamer. Listen to this.
When you hear the name Bill Gates, you probably think Microsoft founder, but now the billionaire may be known as the Hurricane Tamer. Gates is listed as one of 13 inventors on a patent filed for hurricane prevention methods. Hurricanes gain strength from condensation driven by warm surface water, which leads to greater wind speeds. Gates and his team plan to use a fleet of ships to cool warm surface water by mixing it with colder water from greater depths. They hope this will sap energy from growing storms, leading to weaker, less devastating hurricanes. The patent, which isn't expected to be approved for another 18 months, was submitted by C-Reed LLC, a sub-entity of an Intellectual Ventures and an invention acquisition and development firm.
And there you go.
Now,
Bill Gates,
folks, yeah,
the Hurricane Tamer.
What did you... Well, I'll ask you, Joe. What did you think? What struck you most about that?
You control the admitted ability to control weather. You can tame them. You can make them bigger.
Exactly.
You can't blame God, and that's what these people are doing.
Well,
through the vaccines, through the GMOs, through the weather manipulation, even though it's not needed, they are playing God, and God doesn't like when he is mocked. Because that's what they're doing.
Well, yeah, and that struck me. The biggest part struck me was the fact that they know the physics and know how to apply the physics behind, in this case, weather modification. And as we talked earlier, Bill and Melinda Gates, about the eugenics, the population reduction and control, and as it would apply to vaccinations. So, with this, I've got to ask the question. For example, they talk about this hurricane taming. You look at Sandy Hook and the behavior, Hurricane Sandy, and the behavior of that hurricane. And remember, at the time that hurricane was forming and coming through, the newscasters were saying, "We've never seen anything like this. A behavior
one in a million chances to make the turn."
So the question is now, was there and got to ask the question, could there have been some sort of man-made manipulation, whether intentional or a big oops or, hey, let's try this, see what happens,
No, just coincidence.
Well,
it's all a coincidence, one big giant coincidence.
But I guess, looking at this, you have to ask yourself, we're seeing all of this stuff in the world going on. We're seeing the gun grab, or the gun legislation. We're seeing the portals, if you will, opening. And this is the other thing we too want to talk about tonight is the inauguration, and get to your thoughts about this, about what's going to take place here at the inauguration. Because we had Nathan Leal on last week, but we have all this stuff going on, all of this at one time.
Mm-hmm. And I continue to say to you, there's something else going on we are missing.
See, and look, you said that earlier today.
I can feel it. I know it. Whether it's being reported or not, it's there. Something is behind the scenes stirring up an evil plot against the people of this nation and maybe the world.
Well, could it be the inauguration? Is what you're feeling maybe something related to the upcoming inauguration? And folks,
could be financial. It could be a lot of things. All this from when Sandy Hook happened till today, the conversation, the nation has been about guns.
That's right, and nothing but guns. Almost.
Well, almost stuff here and there.
Right.
So there's something going on, and it could be anything. It could be, I don't know. I just know, I can tell, I just feel it, I guess. It's just my instinct. There's something going on. They're getting ready for something. Who knows what it is? It's sinister, and it's going to happen. They need another trigger event. They see the backlash from what they're doing with the executive orders through their anti-gun violence plan. It's not enough. The Aurora shooting wasn't enough. And what do we say then? There'll be another one because they didn't get what they wanted out of it.
According to my source, there will be another one. And I'm not sure if I said this on air or if this was a conversation I had with Greg Evenson, but watch for something of equal or of greater impact than Sandy Hook.
Yeah, I agree 100%. They're not going to stop until they have United Nations blue helmets marching through American martial law streets. And it gets worse from there, forced vaccinations, forced gun confiscations. We will turn into a nation of slaves, and we are going to be judged. We cannot expect this nation to allow the open gay marriage, the abortions, all the abominations that are happening in our name, and not expect the Lord to come down and strike us where we stand.
Well,
to think otherwise,
I agree,
would be arrogant. We are not special from any nation in history that has done things like this. And any nation in history that, if you read the Bible, even that has turned away from God in slight ways, has been terribly judged, let alone places like Sodom and Gomorrah where they've done it openly, as we do.
That's very true. We have, and just to dovetail on what you said there, we have, boy, it just can you tell the heaviness I've got in my heart? When we talk about things like the children, and automatically you think of abortions and the people that it's hard to have a discussion about children without discussing abortions, and you might think, I'm sick of hearing about it. Well, no, you shouldn't be, because with what we're doing here, the 3,000 to 4,000 murders of unborn children per day. Why is this? Why have we allowed this to happen? And
and yes, we've allowed it.
We have allowed it.
Regardless if we agree with it or not, we have allowed our nation to become a majority of people who accept it, and therefore, just by accepting it,
and the judgment that will befall us, it's going to be there, and it's and there's no place really, and I've said this before, because I've received emails. Well, where do you go if, for example, I received an email in a couple of emails do you believe that America is the mystery Babylon, as talked about in the Bible? And frankly, I don't know. But certainly John Price, the author of the book, The End of America, and he's also the author of America at the Crossroads. We've had him on the air before. He believes that America is a mystery Babylon, and he gives numerous signs, numerous points where America could very well be the mystery Babylon. And one, of course, is the immorality and the abortion factor. And I just found it, from his book that he had written, I just found it amazing. And I had no idea that we were actually exporting abortions, or we were sending out money to different countries, with the contingency that you take this money, you have got to allow abortions. Now, the terminology is not exactly the same there. It's a little bit more forceful than that, but that's what's taking place. And then you look into the one thing that we haven't touched on today, and this is something quietly brewing in the background, is what's going on in the Middle East. And now this week, Hillary is going to be lining up or giving her testimony for her knowledge about what happened at Benghazi. Folks, we're still calling the anchors, the news anchors are still calling the CIA compound in Benghazi a consulate. That's wrong. It's a CIA operations center, and that's where Stevens and the 3 other Americans died. What is expected from this testimony from Hillary Clinton is going to be minimal at best, and it's going to be merely a reinforcement of the security aspects of the diplomatic security. That's all it's going to be. Don't expect anything more from this. The official inquiry, the 39-page report, which was issued, I think, back in November, it's done. The blame is essentially placed on the lack of security. Ultimately, in the end, the dead will be blamed. It's an easier way to quiet the problems with and to hide the fact that we were, and still, well, we were, I shouldn't say still are, but we were running weapons up into Syria and Turkey for use by the anti-Assad, anti-al-Sharia groups against Syria, which will be the tripwire for World War III. So we've been quiet on that. We haven't talked about that of late. And I think that with the Clinton testimony, it will open up some additional talking points. It will not give anything of value. She will not give anything of value. But it will reinforce the fact that we have actively armed and we continue to actively arm, not Al-Qaeda. We have to be specific. Ansar al-Sharia, that's a terrorist group that's closely tied to Iran, and AQIM, another terrorist group that's tied to Iran and Syria. We're arming them to fight against Assad. And, Joe, didn't you say yesterday there was a report of chemical weapons being already used in Syria?
Yes, this from, where did I put it? The foreignpolicy.com. Exclusive secret State Department cables say that Assad used, I'm sorry, there's a pop-up here that's blocking me from reading.
Mustard or sarin or some type of chemical weapon. But see, it wasn't Assad. It was not. It was made to look, as we have said before, this is all being made to look like Assad is the bad guy. Now, Assad is no angel, to be sure, nor was Gaddafi. These are not good people. But the intent here of Obama is to toss the Muslim Brotherhood into power in Syria, thus starting World War III. And how World War III is going to be started is because of the destabilization in the area. The Muslim Brotherhood, they're going to run right through, destabilize Syria, and of course 4 million people, mostly Christians, will be killed when this does take place. And then, of course, the Russian Federation of States below Russia, in the southern part of what's known as Russia itself, they will be overrun with this Muslim Brotherhood contingent this contingency of Muslim Brotherhood leaders, if you will. And the end game objective here is to strangle the flow of oil and energy out of Russia, to and from Russia. Russia stands to lose. By losing Syria, Russia stands to lose their only warm water port, and that's the port of Tartus. They will not stand for that. Militarily or economically, they will not stand for that. So we are fighting a war by proxy through Ansar al-Sharia, who we're funding and we're propping up against Russia and against Syria. And this is going to detonate or shorten further the fuse and hasten that burning down of the fuse for World War III. In the crosshairs, of course, is Israel. And we haven't talked much about Israel lately. But Israel right now is part of the equation. Israel is in the crosshairs. And missiles are still being fired into Israel. Israel, their troops are on alert. The IDF, they're on alert. And they are feeling scripturally, I think that if we look at the Isaiah prophecy, or the Psalm 83 war in particular, where there's a confederation of 10 Arab nations or nation states or groups and nations that will surround Israel and attack Israel. I think that this is coming next. So, folks, Psalm 83, and author Bill Salas, the author of Israelistine, talks greatly about this in his book, Israelistine, about the 10-nation confederation attacking Israel, and why that will come before, we'll say, the Isaiah 17 prophecy that talks about Damascus, and the related prophecies that talk about Damascus being a ruinous heap. It could very well happen concurrently, or it could happen consecutively. So this is what we're looking at. In addition to everything else, all the other problems that we just told you about, the domestic gun grab. Look at this. This is happening at the same time. Mm-hmm. And by the way, Benghazi, that's not off our radar screen. One of the things I wanted to share with our listeners is that video. Remember we had on our program the spokesman for the video, The Innocence of Muslims, Steve Klein. Yeah. Right. Looking back at this video, the one thing that I believe to be the case based on our research is this. That video was funded by government money, our government's money, and it was to be used at a time. Our government has a plan where they might have 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or a dozen, who knows how many different operations taking place at any given time. And they need off-the-shelf, ready-made things. This movie, this video, this 14-minute trailer, which, it's, according to information that I've got, somebody pocketed about $5 million on this. $5 million for this 14-minute piece of wow. Well, this is what was ready-made, and this is what they grabbed in haste to say, see, this is what all of this was about. This is what the riots in Cairo were about. And the riots in Cairo were the same as what was going on in Libya, in Tripoli. Oh yeah, and Benghazi too. And Benghazi just got out of hand. But it's not that. No, it's not that.
So if you want to call in, 661-244-9839 is the number.
Covered a lot of ground, and we came at you in like 5 different directions. And sorry about that, but there's just so much going on. And one thing Joe said too: if you have this feeling that we're missing something, that something is going on below the surface, percolating below the surface, share it with us. Point us in the direction. Yeah. We need that. Help us, because if there is, and we're not seeing it, we need to be taking a look at everything, from Israel, from the Middle East, from the economy, from whatever the topic. We need to be looking, because there is something we believe, and I have to sign on with Joe, that there's something percolating here below the surface that's off of everyone else's radar. Mm-hmm. That could give us a left hook, and if it does, we certainly want you to be the first to know. We don't want to leave you hanging. So, we're not. I mean, we're looking at so many different things that it's very possible that we could be seeing something right in front of us and not recognizing for what it is, while we get distracted by the theater performance, the theatrical performance of Obama, the children, and other things. So it's important. So 661-244-9839 is the number, 661-244-9839.
With that, we'll start by going to area code 484. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, guys. How are you doing? Sounds like you're having a real tough time with this. I've been listening to you for the last few days, and I've been wanting to call in, and I really haven't had the opportunity, and I kind of missed it a couple of times as other things came up. A lot of what's going on right now, I think, is a smokescreen, much like you do, Doug. There is stuff under the radar that's going on. I can't quite put my finger on it. There's an absolute surefire way to answer a lot of these questions, and there's some research that, if you get the opportunity, I want you to look up a website. It's put out. I know you do some coast to coast stuff. This guy that does this is a former CIA. You may have heard of him, Major Ed Dames.
Yes. Remote
Go
viewing,
to the LearnRV.com website. Go to the community tab and look up in their advanced. You'll go down the main screen. Look up their advanced workshop queues that they have. It's called Advanced Remote Viewing Projects. And when you go in there, you want to go. Anybody can do this, by the way. Go specifically to the second one down, which is called Project Yogurt. You'll look at the dates and you notice this was just recently done. And this is all RV professionals doing this. These are people that were trained under Ed Dames for years to do this. This is very accurate stuff. And I think, I'm not going to go any further than that with it, other than I think you'll get your eyes opened a little bit. There's some comments that you can read. I specifically think you should read the comments and the summaries of all the people that did the project. And the comments that you could probably ignore the pictures because they really won't mean much to you unless you're doing RV. That having been said, the Sandy Hook thing, there's a couple things that disturbed me, and I know you didn't really want to get into that tonight, and I'm not going to weigh too much in on it, but one thing that's been disturbing me was that I heard that the parents were not allowed to see the children's bodies, that they only could see photographs to identify the children. So if that's the case, and I haven't confirmed this because I've had other things on my mind, but if this is the case, where are those kids? Did they, in fact, get buried, or were they sacrificed? Did somebody take them away to another country and all the parents got to bury was a photograph in the coffin? So that's a thought for you guys to think about, because that disturbs me. And I'm actually a student of the RV process, and I plan on pursuing that. I'm going to view some of those children to see if they're still alive. I know that sounds morbid, but please understand it's a question in my mind I have to answer. But I know that it's possible, so I'm going to try.
Okay.
One of the other. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Well, let me just back up and ask you this question. You gave us specific instructions. Of course, the website is Learn, LEARN, RV, remote viewing, okay, learnrv.com. And then you said community, and then from there I lost you. Where should we go under community?
Once you've gone to community, you'll come to a very first page, and there's just a straight line of different red lettered topics. Go all the way down to the very last section, and it's you can see where it says Advanced Remote Viewing Projects. And you click on the red lettering, and that'll open up the next screen. And then it's actually the third post down, but it's the second actual project. It's called Project Yogurt. It's a 2-page synopsis of what these people came up with. So I'm sure it'll shut down the website, which would be unfortunate. But it's interesting when you watch some of these things done, and then it's even more interesting when you actually do them and you realize that it's not a pie in the sky idea that somebody came up with to sell things. No, this stuff actually works. I've done it on several different occasions. I'm very new at it. But and I'm not trying to sell this to anybody. Trust me, I get absolutely nothing out of this. I just want answers. And this, you cannot lie. You cannot fool this method. You cannot hide from this method. Anything in history, past, present, future, anybody, all that stuff. I mean, you can watch all the YouTube videos if you want. Learn all about this stuff if you want. If you have religious reservations about it, I certainly understand that. And that's something that you would have to deal with on your own. It's not, well, I can't go into arguing anybody's religious aspects.
Just to let people know, remote viewing, and I've talked to Ed Dames, and I've had conversations about this with others in the intelligence community. This remote viewing was funded. It received a lot of funding, Black Ops money. The intelligence community received a lot of Black Ops money to conduct remote viewing experiments and projects. And the official story is, well, remote viewing, it didn't work. It was, it was just a bunch of hooey, junk science and such. And when in truth, the funding never stopped. And, well, the projects never stopped. The intelligence community, now correct me if I'm wrong in this, is this your understanding as well? Did the intelligence community continued their work in remote viewing?
Well, I can't, and it's only for a lack of knowledge, I can't tell you absolutely they continued this. The story is what you said, was that it was brought out. There's a few different reasons, versions of why that the projects were all ended in 1995. It went on for 23 years. It was a black project. It was started by Ingo Swann, and the whole story. And you can go look this up.
Yes.
As far as what they do currently with it, black projects are they do all kinds of things. So I wouldn't put it past them that they do this. And, a few years ago in 2008, we had $500 billion disappear out of the coffers of the banks of America, and we still don't have answers where all that went. So, as far as black projects, I can only assume that they're still out there, and the funding comes from, drugs that are being run out of Afghanistan. They're coming from, the big banks are stealing them, so they're hiring people to protect them and do certain things. I wouldn't put it past them, because you can find out whatever you want to find out. So.
Yeah, and it's before anyone out there, folks, before anyone out there says, well, remote viewing, that's just a bunch of, hooey. Well, let me tell you, that's not what our certain elements within our intelligence community feel. And so
I don't think it's right. I mean,
well,
I don't think it. I don't know. I've never, not to say that the caller's wrong or people's opinion of remote viewing is wrong. It just doesn't sound, it doesn't feel right.
look,
people could sit down and do mathematical calculations and look.
There's an element of physics here. No, it's not like that. There's an element of physics here, and I'm not to cut you short, Joe, but the remote viewing is something that, as the caller said, 23 years as a Black project.
Black project.
Yes.
Okay. So, what about, if we talk about the fallen angels, we talk about the evil spirits, how do we know that's not influenced by them?
You don't.
Well, we can have.
We don't.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things, and you can go back and forth on both sides of this. Believe me, I have these questions in my mind as well. That what if? This is to me, of what I see of it, it's a mind tool, and if you all you're doing is communicating with your subconscious. Now you can say, well, that's dangerous or it's demonic. Okay, when you're driving down a road and you're headed home one night, I'm sure everybody out there has done this, all of a sudden you realize that you don't remember the last 10 miles of road that you just drove. You didn't have an accident. You didn't run over anybody. You didn't have anything else that woke you up. You just don't remember it. You think consciously, wait a minute, I don't remember passing my exit on the highway. Now tell me you haven't done that. Well, who was driving the car? Was it the demons? I don't know, Joe. I can't answer that for you. Like I said, I'm not going to get into a debate about religious ramifications. You have a subconscious mind that's with you all the time. And if you do this, all you're doing is communicating with that subconscious mind. And that's, I'm not as deep into the religious aspects of things as you are, Joe. Believe me, I have too many questions, and I don't get very many answers for them. So I can tell you honestly that through this remote viewing thing, I remote viewed Jesus Christ of Nazareth as one of the targets actually on the DVD session, and it blew me away when I found out what I was looking at, because I perceived that there were 3 people there. Now I didn't know that until I'd done the final step, but it blew me away when I tapped into what I could do with this. I'm not a master at it. I'm very new at this. I can't go down that road. If you don't want to try it, if you don't want to look at it in that respect.
That's fine.
I understand.
Yeah, but that's fine.
No,
it's remote viewing is a very, very interesting topic. I've got to tell you, when Art Bell back in when Ed Dames was really active with Art Bell, I think it was 94, 95, 90. It was in the early to mid 90s. Maybe 95, 96, I guess. It was engaging to listen to Ed Dames talk about this, and knowing Ed Dames as little as I do, but having talked with him in that venue, I just find it a fascinating area of research. I don't know much about it, but I just find it fascinating, and the fact that our own intelligence community had spent so much time, energy, and money in this, it makes it even more intriguing to me. But that said, what do you see under the radar, though? What are we missing here? Because that was the ultimate question.
That I can't put anything on it. I've been watching very carefully all of the events that I've seen on, all the letter agencies, all of the lettered news media, all over the internet, just to find out if there's anything that I can pick out on my own and put it together. I can say definitively that there are, in fact, multiple storms on the horizon, both man-made and geophysical. So that having been said, I can tell you that with all the reports that we're hearing about the Spetsnaz and all these guys that everywhere throughout the United States, they're ramping this up. We know with the laws that were passed or the executive order that was signed earlier today.
Right.
Or yesterday, whenever he did it. I wasn't paying attention. That's, to me, is almost like a shot across the bow. That is, hey, we're serious, we're going forward with something. Although when I read a lot of it, it didn't really make a lot of sense of, how's that going to protect somebody? Because once a person commits an act, and I know that you know this, once a person commits the act, there's no taking it back. So whether they do it with a hatchet, whether they do it with a machete, a pencil, or an automatic weapon, if they decide they're going to go in and take somebody, whether it be in a store, 7-Eleven, or, a Walmart, they grab some little kid, or they grab a woman, or they grab a man, and they do what they're going to do to them. That event's done. You can't say, I wish we'd have protected that person. So prevention, in my mind, is, like 99% of everything that we can do. That having been said, you can't think of everything. And we all know, watching Katrina, watching Sandy, watching all of these events unfold throughout the planet, that the government can't handle them after the fact, regardless of how prepared they are before the fact. So all this stuff being said, I'm going to tell you from my standpoint, I'm just a guy, a blue-collar worker. I don't make a lot of money, but my family, water filters, water, food, we're packing it away every week as much as we can get until something major happens. And it doesn't matter what it is, but if we're not prepared for it, and being mentally prepared, that that it's coming, and you're more or less on edge waiting then, but it's coming, and that way when it does come, you can say, oh, well, I don't have to worry about that because I'm really kind of prepared for it. They're going to get the guns, they're going to come for them, and they're going to try and get them. And when we start hearing about people being attacked by SWAT teams, they're gonna hit people one at a time. They're gonna hit them individually. If they hit a house that had, say, 25 or 30 people in it, then they all had firearms to protect themselves because it's legal, or still, as far as I can recall. It's going to be a lot less for that person. A group of people can come at me because I'm standing alone, and it's going to be devastating. If I'm standing with 10 people that are on my side that all agree, it's not going to be as devastating to me. It's more of a camaraderie thing. But, I don't know. And realistically, what is there, 56 million veterans in the United States, and most of those guys have guns. Most of those men and women have guns. They all took the oath. They all know what's coming. And those are not the people that I would want to make angry. So, I'll keep my eyes open for anything I see.
Well, I'll tell you what. I've got this caller. I did bookmark the learnrv.com. I'm going to check into this, and in fact, I just want to get more information about that because it just brings back some memories that I want to revisit here anyway. You're feeling it. People are feeling it. Caller, we're going to cut you loose. We've got about 24 people on hold that we want to get to.
And we're coming up against the break. Thanks for the call.
I want to thank you very much, my friend. Thank you for calling in. Before we go to the break, let's just do this. Instead of going to a break, I'll do the live read, and then we'll just stay on the air. Okay. That way we don't have to go through that, and the EM stations can deal with whatever we do. But go ahead with what you're going to say.
No, there's the remote viewing thing. I just disagree completely. Knowledge comes from one of two places, good or evil. We can't see the future unless it is given to us from the Lord and through visions, and there are people who do receive those, and there are two types of entities that will speak to us in that way, in the spiritual, and that is either good or evil. And I don't believe we can figure it out for ourselves, and any other way would be to undermine the Lord, I think. Well, just my personal opinion. Whether people take stock into remote viewing or not, I wouldn't mess around with them.
Well, can we not say the same thing perhaps about the polygraph test then? I mean, in a sense, why not?
That has nothing. That's not similar. You're not trying to figure out the future. You're not trying to look into.
No, remote viewing is actually this.
You're circumventing a system of, or attempting to, or people think they are circumventing something that is a gift from the Lord as far as prophecy is concerned, as far as visions are concerned. That can't be done unless it is done through usurping the process by evil.
Okay, no.
In my opinion.
It's remote viewing by definition is the practice of seeking impressions about a distant or unseen target using subjective means.
What was that?
Okay. This is per Wikipedia, for example. Remote viewing is the practice of seeking impressions, and I don't put a lot of stock.
Seeking impressions.
Okay.
We're not talking about trend forecasting here.
No,
we're talking about viewing specific things, either past, present, or future.
Okay, think about it this way. You're a remote viewer. You are to give information, for example, about an object that's hidden from physical view and separated by distance. All right. This remote viewing was coined by somebody. It doesn't matter, but the bottom line is it's not clairvoyance. Okay, it's actually something that has to do with physics. It was part of the Stargate project back in the 90s from the Pentagon, I believe it was. But
let's do your live reading. I disagree. I don't want any part of that. And we're going to come back and get as many of these phone calls as we can. So, guys, if you got questions, comments, try to keep them just to a few minutes so we can get through the calls.
Yeah, we want to get all the calls in. That's why we're going to just forego this break and just tell you about Grandland Firearms, GrandlandFirearms.com. Folks, if you want to just visit GrandlandFirearms.com. What a beautiful place they have up there in British Columbia. Carl Grandland has written a book. I've got it right here. It's just an amazing book. It's called Treed Beyond the River, Cougar Hunting on Vancouver Island. It's Carl H. Grandland is the author, and it's a great book to have. It's hard to describe because I'm not a hunter, but there's something about this book. Reading halfway through the 55 or 56 chapters on this. Just about the sport of kings, we'll say, and about the events of cougar hunting and such, and the events, the personal stories in this book. It's called, once again, Treed Beyond the River, and it's by Carl Grandland. Folks, I want you to visit GrandlandFirearms.com. Carl's been the owner of that location for the last 20 years. Located in Campbell River, British Columbia, they've got all sorts of hunting supplies, rifles, equipment, what have you. Give them a visit. That's GrandlandFirearms.com. Just go to HomelandSecurityUS.com. Click on our ad to the block there. It'll take you to their website. Have a look around there. Tell them Doug and Joe sent you from that.
All right. Grandland Firearms. Yeah, that's a great company up there, and we got to thank them for supporting us and for doing what they do and providing things to people that might not be available in America anymore. Moving right along into the phone calls here. Thanks for holding, everyone. We're going to go to area code 304. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, Joe and Doug. This is Phil from West Virginia.
Hey, Phil.
I just, it's good to hear from you guys again. I just what my spirit's telling me is that truth. People are looking for truth so much, and actually, to hear what you guys do, and I'm not trying to blow your horn or anything. But with the way you guys go through the news, and I listen to other people, and I look at other things, but how important that is to each of us to look for that truth, and how it's not revealed just willy-nilly. I mean, you have to search for it sometimes. Sometimes God gives it to you, but I just think it's just very important for us to stick together and keep looking for that truth, because it's always being revealed, but you do have to look for it. Not everybody sees it. Not everybody knows it.
Yeah. It's discernment.
Anyway, I just want you guys to just know that, and you guys have a good night, and continue doing the good work that you're doing.
Well, thank you.
And
we will do our level best to bring it.
Well, thank you very much. You guys have a good night.
Thank you.
You too. Thanks for the call. All right, we're going to move right along. Area code 832. You're up next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hello?
Yes, you're up.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear us? Yeah, we can hear you fine. You're on with Doug and Joe.
Cool.
You're live on the air.
Oh, great. I thought I was going to have to wait forever. You said 12 calls. I've been listening to the program, and I have a couple of things to say about that because, like the caller that was just before you, some of us were so dumbfounded by the election results. I started kind of looking in different areas to see if I could make some sense of it all. And have you heard of John McTiernan Ministries? Are you there?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's a Defend and Declare the Faith. He's got a really big ministry with Israel and that sort of thing, the Israeli believers. But I was reading one of his articles, and it made so much sense to me. And he was talking about the hurricanes, Isaac and Sandy, and how they had radically changed his ministry when he realized something about them. He said that it changed his ministry because back in August, when he linked Isaac hitting New Orleans during the homosexual event called Southern Decadence, and he had gotten a lot of reaction from that. But he said that he feels that God personally used Isaac and Sandy to change the course of the election and to keep Obama in office because we're under judgment. I mean, there's no doubt about that in my mind. But anyway, he said the way that he did it was absolutely mind-boggling because Hurricane Isaac hit during the Republican convention and altered the proceedings. It sent confusion, which resulted in a no bounce for Romney. Now, not that anybody thinks Romney was going to save the country, but, it's just so many people didn't want Obama back. But Romney caught up, and then Romney caught up with Obama at the first debate, and that was like the last time that ever happened. Now he says here that I did not follow the convention, so I had no idea about this confusion. He says, but this is what a political observer had observed. The first hurricane was Isaac, the one that skirted Tampa in late August during the Republican convention. This one seriously disrupted the official schedule. GOP star Marco Rubio, who gave the best speech at the convention, was bumped off primetime television. So that made a huge hit for Obama. And then, of course, there was Clint Eastwood, and, he kind of, outshined Romney. But what he says here is, in conclusion, he says, what I see is that Hurricane Isaac bypassed the convention and made a hit on New Orleans during Southern Decadence. And he said he had reported it gave Obama an advantage politically and brought judgment on a homosexual ordinance. Because the same time that Sandy hit, and then the second Hurricane Obama was Sandy. This one targeted New York just 6 days after the state court upheld homosexual marriage. The massive hurricane was on the way when the decision was released. Like Isaac, Hurricane Sandy was also directed at a homosexual ordinance. This was about marriage, and its damage was catastrophic. So he feels like Isaac, Hurricane Sandy affected the campaign and was dramatically used to help reelect Obama. Without this hurricane, there was a possibility that he might not have won. And, he was right because, 7 years before when Katrina hit New Orleans, that was during a homosexual event as well. And it was 7 years to the day that Isaac had hit. Does anybody realize that? God is just really funny the way he works. And then I had one other thing to say. I know. Praise the Lord.
I wanted to say this, and I do know who you're talking about now because he did, and how I remember this. Think Progress did a hit piece on him for saying that when you mentioned Isaac and Sandy together, and then you started getting into the homosexual agenda. I remember Think Progress did a really bad hit piece on him, John McTiernan, and the just about Katrina. Just to add one more thing to your book of thoughts here. that was during the Israel Gush Katif resettlement operations, and it's interesting because we often reference this. Hurricane Katrina took out as much land in America as America did in Israel and gave to the Arabs. So that was kind of a measure for measure instance.
That's right.
So
that's also when Bush was trying to divide them, to divide the land.
Right.
That's right.
Right. So yes, and I'm on board with what you're saying, and I think it's a divine thing going on. But I did not mean to interrupt. Go ahead and continue.
Oh, that's okay. And then the second thing I wanted to tell you that I just inadvertently come across. Have you heard of a show called The Common Sense Show with Jim Mars?
No, Jim Mars. Yes.
Okay. Did you see his show on 12/27/2012? Because it's entitled "Why Ex-Feds and Wall Street Execs Are Going into Hiding," and he says in his interview, in a December 9th, 2012 interview, Jim Mars discussed how approximately 400 to 500 top-level bankers have left their positions and have gone into seclusion. Mars reminded, and I'm just reading this, Mars reminded my listening audience of how the elite have developed seed vaults which only they can access. Mars was clearly alluding to the fact that some very bad events are coming, and the global elite are aware of it and are moving to meet the threat. This thing is happening in various federal agencies who have recently retired from the CIA, DHS, NSA, FEMA, the FBI. This fact is indisputable, he says. I have firsthand knowledge of 3 ex-Fed officials and their families who relocated to safety enclaves when doing so was very disruptive to their respective families' lives. Increasingly, it's looking like some major events are coming, and the persons with insider information are attempting to remove themselves from harm's way since Obama's reelection. They're talking about how they've got these places up in the Missouri Ozarks, in Colorado. Everybody knows about, the bunkers that are accessed from the Denver airport and other places around the country. But 400 and 500 all of a sudden? And every time you turn around on the news lately, you hear about somebody else retiring. And you hear about these people leaving the country. So they know that something's coming. And I believe, and I know in my heart of hearts, and I feel it in my spirit, that it's going to happen very soon. Very soon.
Well, don't forget the Bush family has a big place in Paraguay. So.
Oh, really?
I'm familiar. Oh, yes. Paraguay is their choice of destination, and
do you
that
remember
happens to be in the
Do you remember what God did? Do you remember what God did to Bush Sr. when he was trying to divide Israel during his presidency? All of a sudden, there was this huge wave that just came out of nowhere, and the only thing that was destroyed was Bush's childhood home. Because he was trying to divide Israel. I mean, of course, all this is ground zero for Israel. I mean, it really is. This is, that's what prophecy to me is. It's Israel's ground zero. But I see things all the time. I mean, I don't know. You try to prepare and everything, but I think it's going to hit us so hard and so fast that those of us that are totally prepared, or even the people who know how to really shoot guns and handle guns and have electronic knowledge and that sort of thing, really will stand a chance against what's coming towards us. I mean, we are in judgment. And if anybody thinks otherwise, I don't know how they wouldn't.
No, I think we do. I think we all believe that we're, as Billy Graham or Franklin Graham said, if we're not, then certainly God owes Sodom and Gomorrah an apology. A tongue-in-cheek reference, but indeed, I think we are, and I think Joe would agree with that. I don't know, Joe, do you agree with that we're in judgment?
Oh yeah,
under judgment.
We're seeing the very beginning,
of
the judgment.
Yeah. So, but interesting comments, by the way, and both Jim Mars and John McTiernan. I would urge everyone to just take a look at what they've got to say about various topics.
They're really incredible guys.
Well.
They are. Well, listen, thank you so much for taking the time with me, and God bless everyone.
God bless you. Thank you very much for the call.
You're welcome.
Good night. All right, moving right along here. We are going to go to area code 614. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Hello.
Yeah. How you guys doing?
Very well. What's up?
Hey, I listen to you guys all the time. Really like you, and I don't ever call in. But after I heard the guy call in about the remote viewing, I had to call because he sounded like a real sincere guy. But I got to say, Joe's 100% correct. The remote viewing in the Army started with the 1st Earth Battalion, and I'm driving, so I don't have the guy's name, but you can look it up. The officer who started it, basically he was delving in Eastern mysticism and a lot of New Age religion, and he brought it into the Army as a way of, trying to gather more intelligence. And I agree with Doug that it is very interesting, and I do believe that some of what they did worked, but I also believe that the devil can manipulate things to make it look like it's the truth. And it's funny, around the same time that the 1st Earth Battalion started, an officer by the name of Michael Aquino was setting up satanic churches on the U.S. Army base. So it was like all at the same time this influence came into the Army, and it's just really dangerous. I remember when I was younger, I used to get upset when different preachers came into the church and would prophesy to people, and it was really obvious that it wasn't God. It was more just, I don't, you know how people are, they want to feel like they've got a word from God, but it's not from God. My mom always told me, Jesus said this in Revelation, that the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. And true prophecy, true forthtelling from the Spirit of God will always lift up Christ in one way or the other. And it goes back to what Joe said, that there are two forces in the universe. That is the force of the Spirit of God, and that the other force is that which is not of God. And it's very dangerous to be involved in something such as remote viewing, because basically, I mean, when you get down to the bare bones of it, it's basically interfacing with demonic spirits, and it could really lead you down the road to spiritual possession from those spirits. It's very dangerous. I've heard Major Ed Dames quite a few times, and a lot of what he said has been true, but, you know, like I said before, the devil can influence many things because he is the God of this world. He does influence a lot of what goes on in this world. So it can sure look like his prophets are true, but if it does not line up with the Word of God, and it's a spiritual thing, and it does not line up with the Word of God, it's very obvious what spirit it is. So I don't want to take up your whole show, but I just had to call because I knew there would be people listening who probably get curious to look into something like that, and I just would hate to see people get drawn into something because it is very intriguing, and anytime somebody feels like they could get a touch from the other side, it's very intriguing. But I tell you, if it doesn't line up with the Word of God 100%, I agree with Joe. It's just not right. But I appreciate you guys. You guys are doing a great job. I listen to you all the time. So I'll let you go.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that call.
Thank you.
Just to be clear, I certainly did not mean to sound like I was endorsing remote viewing, but explaining that, yes, it was a legitimate intelligence operation and military intelligence, and then intelligence operation. that did exist and continue to exist and took a lot of taxpayer money. Yeah, much like...
I mean, I've heard about it many times, and I never put any stock into it.
But I mean, okay, but I just want to make sure. I mean, people know, for example, Ouija boards exist. People know that crystal balls exist. People should know that remote viewing exists. Just, as an FYI, okay?
Yeah.
That's all. So.
All right, we're going to go to area code 917, then we're going to go to Pam, and then Phil. 917, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Gentlemen, how are you?
Very well. What's bugging you tonight?
I mean, you guys covered a lot of material in the first 2 hours. Real quick though, just with the remote viewing and more so the subconscious. This is kind of how I try to break down the truth to people. But if you look at a FedEx logo, most people when they look at it, they just see the word FedEx. But if you realize that in between the E and the X in the middle, there's an arrow that's pointing forward. Once you see that logo and you make out the arrow that's pointing forward to the right if you're looking at it, that clicks your subconscious, and then every time you see a FedEx truck, you don't look at it the same. Your brain always focuses in on that arrow, and that's kind of how it is with the truth. It's kind of like once your subconscious recognizes what really is and it separates fiction from reality, it's easier for your brain to pick up on the reality or what the truth is. And I read an article today that the U.S. said that the truth is too confusing and dangerous to disclose to the public. And this is going based on, Obama's executive orders. And I didn't know if you guys knew that about the FedEx logo.
Well, first of all, yeah, I've heard that about the FedEx logo, and an interesting correlation that you make to the looking at it and then associating that with being able to discern like the truth. I get that comparison. What I'm more interested in, what you said next, was what publication was that in about the truth is too complicated and dangerous and we can't handle the truth?
I forget what it is. I read the article this morning, actually this afternoon, but if you just Google United States says the truth is too confusing and dangerous to disclose to the public, you'll see it on Google. And it all goes back like, I called you guys last week. I'm the one from New York. And 2 nights ago when Cuomo did the secret little gun control law that he passed sneakily, we really don't have that bad of gun violence here in this state. Maybe in the city, in the hood, because, again, illegal criminals are the ones that have the guns. But I knew as soon as he did that, because I have friends who went to sleep as law-abiding citizens, and all of a sudden they woke up and now they're criminals. And what I told you guys last week when I called you, I said the word that described 2013 up to this point and beyond is hypocritical. And all of these high-ranking government officials, they're nothing but hypocrites. This guy gets up on stage, he pulls a Hitler, Saddam Hussein, let me pretend I'm Stalin and exploit children and use them and say, if it just saves one life. Well, where are you with your one life when not only do you approve third-term abortion, not only do you ignore the fact that more than 3,000 kids a day are aborted, exterminated, not only do you kill kids all over the world with your cowardly drone strikes, but I read an article that this guy is testing anthrax vaccines on kids. And then if you know anything about the Journal of Bioethics, and I'm sorry to get so angry about this, but it's just it's getting to the point where things that are happening daily now is like a year ago, these sort of things would happen once a month where you get really angry about something, but the way that they're moving so quick right now. And it's definitely, like you said, these are all diversionary tactics. It's the magician showing you the right hand while his left hand is doing something. And they're getting ready.
Well, I think maybe I might have interrupted you before you had a chance to say it, but what do you see us being diverted from? Because that concerns me.
That's the question. You see, I know, Doug, I've heard you say a couple of times that you started really digging in and studying Illuminati and stuff like that. What I think, the same thing that happened with Libya, I'm not saying that Gaddafi was a great man, but you know what? He looked out for his people. If you got married, you get a farm, you get $25,000 equivalent to United States currency. He gives you cows. He gives everybody free education. And just like Syria, and again, I'm emphasizing, I'm not saying that these guys are angels because they're not, but when you get a country that has no debt with the IMF, when you get a country that has no debt, period, when you have a country that doesn't need to worry about the global banksters to depend on, these guys, these elite, they get extremely frustrated, and they typically use their false flag attacks or their black propaganda to lie. I mean, they did it with Gaddafi. That's crazy. They did it with Egypt. Now the Muslim Brotherhood is running that, and that country is out of control. And Syria, and with Assad, is the same way. He's not using chemical weapons on his own people. If anything, it's the terrorist groups that are the Free Syrian Rebels, which, like abortion, our tax-paying dollars is funding. And I got to hear from a guy, him and his attorney general, you know, does that background check apply to the Mexican drug cartels that you gave weapons to try and demonize our Second Amendment? And it's the same thing with these guys. All they do is they play both sides, just like the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds did with Hitler, just like they did in Russia with the Reds and the Whites. They sent 10,000 New Yorkers over there who were experienced sharpshooters. The Western world, the Western governments, the banks, those guys are responsible for everything. All the sorrow and pain in this world is caused by them, and they're hypocrites. And you know, because you guys talked about vaccines and gun control, you know, the Journal of Bioethics, okay, there's a thing that Obama approved. I'm not sure when it goes into effect, but it's called a post-term abortion, okay? And I brought it up to my father. I brought it up to my father on Thanksgiving. I said, you guys really think this guy cares about kids? He not only approved third-term abortions, but this guy has death panels, okay? This guy wants to make it legal to have post-term abortions up to 3, meaning if you have a kid that's 2.5 that has some minor handicap, you could just kill him.
Yeah.
You know, and like Gerald Celente said, the fish rots from the head down. And we wonder why culturally we are so screwed. I mean, people like us who, even if you don't believe in Christ, if you have a good heart, I mean, that's up to you religiously, what you partake in. But we wonder why we're so screwed and everybody else in the world hates us. Because look at our leaders. Look at what they do. They're hypocrites. You want to worry about saving one life? I'll tell you what. I'll save 3,300 for you. Ban abortion.
Isn't it interesting how they leave God out of the equation, too, when talking about trying to do things to save lives in all their speeches and all their words of wisdom and leadership that they call it, yet they not only refuse to mention the real solution, they make sure they have nothing or any association with them.
Of course. And I mean, another article I read today, like you guys know, I'm just an information junkie, is a teacher in Western New York got fired because she had a poster in her classroom of a Ronald Reagan quote about about when a country, a quote about when a nation gets rid of God, something, and she got fired for it. I read another article of a teacher in New York who the last student had some questions about scriptures that were in the Bible, and she gave him a copy of a King James Bible and explained some things to him, and he got fired. You can't call it a Christmas concert. It's got to be a holiday concert. You know, my wife is pregnant right now, and in New York State, it's mandatory that you give your newborn a vitamin K vaccine when your baby is born. I told the hospital where she's going to give birth within the next month, you guys could go screw yourselves because I am not putting any poison into my child's body. I was born in 1979. I didn't need a vitamin K vaccine, so my child doesn't need a vaccine. And you guys ask, what do you go ahead.
No, you know what, caller? That's the first I've heard of a vitamin K vaccine at childbirth.
It's only mandatory in, of course, New York. It's a mandate, and I told the director at the hospital, yeah, you could mandate that I be locked up with chains and pull a plow around your property. I'm not going to do it. You're not going to tell me that my First Amendment, my freedom of religion, you're not going to tell me that my intelligence, my research that I've done, you're not going to tell me that doesn't matter. And on top of that, she tells me that, because I went crazy with research because I told them I'm not going to comply to you. Compliance is for the sheep, and I'm a critical thinker. I'm a strong individual. I didn't get the vitamin K vaccine. You're not going to poke my newborn baby. She's staying here with the mother when she's born, and that's it. And they said, okay, fine, you could do that, but we have to report you to CPS. And I said, you know what?
Really?
If you want to do that, go right ahead. Go right ahead. And if they come to my apartment, which now because of Cuomo 2 nights ago, the wife and I already discussed it. We're out of here. You know, I don't know where we're going to go, but I'm done. I'm sick of them. These guys are hypocrites. They take away our protection for the same very protection that they demand from their security guards. And that gives me...
Now you're sounding like an NRA commercial. We can't have that.
You know, it's just one thing after another. And everything is building up. This whole vaccine thing, like you guys, Joe, you were talking about the vaccine court. Yeah, they wouldn't have a vaccine court if these things weren't poisonous. Okay, our autism rate in this country wouldn't be 1 in 82 or 1 in 88 instead of 1 in 33,000 like it was 10 years ago. They've infiltrated every single avenue of our life, whether it's the banks, whether it's our healthcare system, whether it's the foods, whether it's Big Pharma, whether it's the church with the 501c3 churches. You can't escape from these evil people and what they've done. Look what public schools are. Look at public schools. Public schools are the equivalent to public restrooms, in a mall. They're dirty, they're filthy, and all they do is they teach the kids what they want them to think is true. They don't teach truth. And the vaccines is one of the biggest things, like with Obamacare. If you want Obamacare or you want your EBT cards, you better be ready to get 50 vaccines. You better be ready to get post-birth abortions. March 13th, you better be ready to get an RFID chip in your right hand, the mark of the beast. You better be ready for all this stuff. And if you're not down with Obamacare, I'm going to double the price of your insurance premiums because I want to drain this country and bankrupt it because in the cycle of nations, dependency is how they're going to use us to control us. And it's not going to work with certain people. And the vaccine thing is really, like Savage said, there's 350 strands. They guessed 2 or 3 of them. It doesn't work. Everybody has the flu right now. All these people, they got the flu shot. It's called acquired immunity, okay? You don't need to put formaldehyde, aluminum, mercury, thimerosal. You don't need to put these dangerous, toxic chemicals into your into your body in order for you to be healthy. It's called nutrition supplementation. Okay, if you take the right supplements and you have the proper nutrition, your body is going to fight off all the dirt that it takes in. Plus, if you believe in God, He's going to help you. So it's just a myth. It's just a scam for these people to make more money, but it also goes back to Project Paperclip and Operation Mockingbird. You got Dr. Oz. Oh, get a vaccine. You got to vaccinate everybody, your kids. Dr. Oz, do you vaccinate your kids? No.
And that's the game they play, caller. I don't mean to cut you off, but we got to move on. We have some more people on hold that are waiting to get on.
Great call, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, guys. Well, I'll talk to you. I'll give you guys a call. Okay, buddy.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Have a good night. God bless you guys.
Great call. Great call, man.
Lots of good information in there, and we could do a whole show on what he just mentioned there briefly during that call. We're going to go to Pam, then Phil. Pam, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, guys.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hey, Pam, we're here.
Well, I just wanted to say something about the inauguration on Sunday, the private one, down in the portal. Anyway, I had emailed Nathan earlier tonight because I was rereading his Alert 3 over on his website, and I got back down to the part where he's talking about portals opening up, and it just all of a sudden it was just like a little flash in my head that I remembered back in the fall of 2011 the big dig that was going on at the west wing of the White House, where they were digging this giant hole in the ground off of the west wing there, and nobody really knew what it was. They had it covered over with tarps, and a few people were saying, oh, well, it's the sewer system and da-da-da, but nobody ever really found out what that was. And then I had read an article at the time that these reporters were making a joke saying, this president can do anything. He can build his own private labyrinth outside the White House office in the West Wing, and nobody even questions it. And I started thinking about the portals and that demon that's going to enter in at exactly noontime at the inauguration. I mean, on the 20th there, and how that demon is the representative for Satan and one of the powers is he's the demon force of Satan's military, like the army, like a military force. And I started to think about how DHS is going to be the force, and who is going to be at this inauguration? It's a private inauguration. Is this like in the movie Eyes Wide Shut, where you got this private ball with all this Illuminati, and they were having this grand masquerade with Satan, and all of this is going on with these demonic powers and everything? Is this what this portal is? Is this what this hole is off of the West Wing? Is that the portal down to let that demon up into the White House with all of these creepy people there on noontime for this inauguration, for this private inauguration? And I started to think about these children that nobody knows what happened to over at Sandy Hook. And this, in particular, the one that they kept showing the pictures of, that Robbie Parker's daughter there, Emily Parker, with the red and the black dress with the little rosebud on it, and how it cropped up in another scene where she's with Obama in another picture, and with that same dress on after she was supposedly dead. And I started to think about how the Illuminati have, it's known that they're pedophiles and sodomites, and I started to think about how all through history they seem to like those blonde-haired little children. You know, you remember Tuesday Weld? She was one of the Illuminati main people, and they brought over the Rolling Stones, and Mick Jagger wrote that song Ruby Tuesday about Tuesday Weld, and the Hotel California was where they all partied out. And I'm just rambling on here, but I'm just saying there's something coming here. Nathan Leal is on target. Brother Nathan, we're praying for you. Brother Steve Quayle, we're praying for you. The blood of Jesus over Hawk and the River Pirate and Sue Bradley and Doug and Joe Hagmann and Alex Jones. We need to be praying for everybody because there's a demon force coming out here. And it's something we can't see, but everybody's feeling it. And that's all I've got to say.
Thanks, Pam.
Okay.
Wow. Cover a lot of ground in that.
Okay.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
Love you a lot.
Cover a lot of ground in that conversation or that call. We can feel. Look, we can feel that something's coming. We know something's coming, and we have to use our spiritual, God-given discernment to really sort things out. We gave you a whole bunch of news the first 2 hours, or the first part of the program. The news that we believe is important for you to really focus on. But, there's still something that Joe believes in, and I'm of the same opinion, too, that we're not quite hitting on what is it. We're still looking for that. So just as an FYI.
Yeah. We're going to go to Phil, our favorite first responder in Brooklyn, New York. Phil, what's going on?
Good evening. How are you guys doing tonight?
Very well, Phil.
I was reviewing everything in the paperwork, that I was doing for my roommate show, and then I'm putting together a plan for another show, and I'm saying to myself, I'm looking at everything that's going on. I'm looking at everything that's going on right now, and I say to myself, what could it be? And I say, I thought it out through and through. It's basically what's happening is, the way I see it, this will be a currency collapse in April, and the shooting is part of the picture. Part of the picture, and I'll tell you why. I reviewed the news. I saw on CNBC Japan started the opening salvo in the currency war. So now they're going to start printing up massive amounts of currency and weaken their yen. It's going to spread to China as well, and the contagion will continue to the U.S. and then Europe. So these markets are so interconnected with all these derivatives that something has to give. And then when we hit April 15th, which is the tax deadline, we're going to see our tax receipts are far lower than expected, and then you're going to see real fluctuations on the markets and a possible collapse. Because I looked at my own company's stock, which is Apple, and I saw it went down by 30 yesterday, and I didn't see it today. I didn't check because I was off the whole day, and I didn't look at it, and I'm saying to myself, what's going on? And then I hear the imposter president come on and say to himself, we have to take away your guns. And I'm saying, wait, that's just a distraction. Something bigger is happening here, So on that private ceremony, on the 20th, I cracked a joke about it. Do you solemnly swear that you will faithfully work to destroy the Constitution of the United States? And do you swear to the best of your abilities to arrest and kill all defenders of the Constitution, so help you God? And then he says, so help me, as far as I'm concerned. So to me, he's just a puppet, basically.
Well, he is a puppet, and I think that we've seen this throughout history, at least recent history, where you've got the it's interesting how we fund, by the way, or not we, the bankers, central bankers fund both sides of conflicts. They hedge their bets. They bet on both sides of an economic collapse. You've got the George Soroses of the world. But it all comes down to, half a dozen banks or power families that really run things.
Really, 4 if you think about it.
So yeah, okay. So now that said, I mean, we know that the dollar cannot be sustained. So I think February marks the budget ceiling, or the what am I trying to do? Debt ceiling, whatever.
And then we were hearing talk about them just doing away with that.
Right, which is I don't believe is constitutional according to.
Since when is anything to be constitutional?
Well, really,
exactly.
he's out there to destroy it, so let's just change the words of the oath, for God's sakes, you know? Do you swear to destroy the Constitution and to arrest and kill all enemies, or protectors of the Constitution and enemies of the New World Order, so help you know? I mean, come on.
Yeah,
that's the way
ridiculous.
I see it. And I'm telling, that's the way I make light of it, but deep down, you know, I my head's spinning, and we'll be honest with you.
Oh.
You know, and it's a miracle that I ain't getting drunk, or or anything right now, and or going out and doing what I used to do years ago. I'm not going to do that. I'm just not going to.
I think we're all punch drunk from the news. I mean, when you look at everything that's going on, can you really? Can anyone really expect to keep up with the constant influx of the headlines?
No,
I
mean, you look at the Drudge Report, you look at Alex Jones, you look at mainstream, and your head starts to spin because the left and right ain't giving you the truth on Fox and CNN, so you have to go to the alternative media, and then you get most of it there, and then there's misinformation out there as a psyop, so you have to sort through that as well, and make heads or tails out of it. So I say to myself, which end is up, Phil? Why are you even bothering to help all these people? And I said, because that's your nature. You ran on 9/11, and you're not going to run now. And which is what I wanted to talk about. Also, I think we need to do really a series of shows, and I mean all the like-minded hosts get together on BTR. One night we do the Hagmann show. The next night we do Revelation News. Then we do Pastor Paul, and we just put in rapid fire. Boom, 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 and put it out there once and for all, okay? And I sent you an email, Joe, the details of how I would see it happen, the spiritual perspective, the economic perspective, the gun perspective, the patriot perspective, and it all lines up together, and in the end, we'll have everyone will get to talk. What do you think about that?
Well, we can take a look at that, Phil, and I don't know if Joe's got his computer up there, but
no, I don't right now. But it's something definitely we can discuss, and we'll talk about.
I think it's timely. I think it's timely that we do a series of shows. We do it as a group of like-minded hosts. We rock their BTR server, shall we say, and we just make a home run, and let's put it out there that a group of like-minded hosts got together to hold a round table with power guests, and just had an open discussion amongst themselves on, survival, from everything from survival to where we're headed. I think we need to, and I think we need to put this in perspective. We need to use intelligence. We need to, whatever resources we have at our disposal, may it be your intelligence connections, may it be Steve's intelligence connections, may it be the spirit of God, which I think is moving me to think it's going to be the currency collapse, which means we don't have much time.
Well, the currency collapse, or the collapse of the U.S. dollar, or the attack, more appropriately, of the U.S. dollar, I think is going to be the blindsider, the factor that's going to blindside a lot of people. You've got a lot of people out there saying everything is fine and recovery is here. The economy's sputtering, but it's not that bad. When in fact, that's all a lie. And my question is, are these people who are saying this, are they believing this lie, or are they?
I don't know. I think they're paid to put out misinformation. It's obvious, and everything is written in candy. I mean, look at the ownership. 90% of the media is owned by what? 3 media conglomerates.
Yeah, I mean, like one of the biggest is Viacom, and it's.
I mean, look who controls the message, and therefore the messenger. So guys like us. The Hagmann Report, Alex Jones, Revelation News Radio, all these various shows, it's a one, how do we make an impact? you know, and it's part of why I think we need to do one mega show for a series of shows. I think we need to get it out there. We need to put.
Yeah, and I think that now. So I think that's something that it's an interesting concept. You know, even if they're back to back or some sort of like a marathon type deal, I think that would be a good thing. Because,
well, you know, and then what we do is we put that. Yeah, and then we do a website to back everything up with articles.
Well, true, and but you know, it's something though that we can talk about, Phil. But
definitely.
Yeah,
I think we're onto something here.
All right. We'll talk off air more about that, my friend.
Yeah, definitely.
God bless you.
And God bless you guys, and everyone in the chat room. Just remember, keep your heads up, held high.
Right on, man. Right on.
Thanks, all right. Talk to you, Joe. Bye.
All right.
All right, we're going to get one more phone call in here. Area code 340.
340.
We're coming to you. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
340. Hello there.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, indeed.
Okay, I'm all the way from the Virgin Islands. Okay, first of all, I just wanted to say on the first, it was about remote viewing. It's definitely demonic. And, I mean, they use familiar spirits and so forth to deal with those things. And if you guys, I'm sure you guys know of Russ Dizdar, and he has a lot of insight and information about that, and he explains how it's definitely demonic. And in the olden days, I mean, biblical times, God told his people to keep away from it and destroy those people who actually were involved in it. So it's a very serious thing with God. And I believe we should only warn people about the things that are happening in the physical realm or the things that are happening economically, but also the things that definitely deal with God. So that remote viewer who's beginning, I think he really just needs to stop and seek God for answers. And again, God is the number one source we should go to for all our answers. We shouldn't depend or rely on ourselves. That's number one. And another thing I wanted to stress on, like you guys were stressing on, the things that they're putting out there on TV, especially with taking away our guns, they're trying to blindside the American people. They really are. But there's something more sinister and deeper going on that we aren't even aware of. And the Bible said in these last days, I mean, there's going to be a time of trouble such as never was since there was ever a nation on this earth, according to Daniel. So things are going to be so bad, and we're going to see some things where men's hearts is going to be failing them for fear of the things that are going to be happening and coming upon the face of the earth. And, I mean, I have so many thoughts in my head, but I really wanted to focus a little bit on quick question. This question is, what is sin according to the Bible?
Disobedience against the Lord and his commandments. Right.
So the Bible does say sin is the transgression of the law, and you wouldn't know sin except the law said do not do this or do not do that. So basically the wages of sin is death. And the Bible also says we're servants to whom we obey. And one crucial point that a lot of Christians are missing, and I don't want to say it's my belief, it's just things that I've read in the Bible, but a lot of people like to say God's laws are done away with, especially, I mean, referring to the Ten Commandments. It was nailed to the cross, but according to the Bible, the handwriting of ordinances that Moses did was what he was referring to, and that was nailed to the cross. The Ten Commandments is written in stone, meaning it's going to last forever. And even in the New Testament and Revelations, it says those who have to keep the commandments and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. And I just wanted to just point out to those listening that in Ecclesiastes, it says the whole duty of man is to fear God and keep his commandments. That's the whole duty of man, and that's God's written words. So what is it to fear God and keep his commandments? Because a lot of people just like to say, accept Jesus Christ and you'll be saved, and that's it. But there's more to just accepting him and believing in him, because with belief comes works. So there's things we must do when we accept Jesus Christ. And a lot of us don't kill, don't steal. And I'm wrapping it up. Just wanted to voice my opinion because it kind of troubles me a lot. But we keep 9 out of the 10 commandments, only one God and so forth. But when it comes to the one commandment that, it says to remember, a lot of us just don't remember it. There's one commandment that says remember, and we just can't seem to remember it. And that's the only sign that God said would be between him and his people, and it shall be a sign forever. And we tend to not look at those verses or that verse, but that commandment is definitely, and even in James 2:10, it says, if you keep all and offend in one point, you're guilty of all. And I just wanted, Christians just to be aware that when we obey God, we can't do it partially. We have to do it wholeheartedly and all the way. And not only do I want them to get ready for the things that are going to happen on the earth, but I believe God is definitely, like the Bible says, holding back the winds, because he needs to seal his people. Because what's going to happen, definitely we need more than just a gun and what everyone is fighting for. We need God. That's what we need foremost. We need God on our side. And once we have God, we shouldn't have to worry, or that fear of what's going to happen, it's not going to be there anymore, because we know regardless whether we lose our lives or not, we're going to have, we have that hope to know that we'll see God someday. And I just wanted everyone to just get that, to let them know, get that close personal relationship with God. And, there was one more thing before I go. You said a caller or someone who wrote to you asked Mystery Babylon, was that America? And according to the Bible, women in the Bible were referred to churches according to Bible prophecy. And that name, Mystery Babylon, was written on that woman's head who was on the beast. And that woman, again, is a church. So Mystery Babylon is definitely a church. And if you had to definitely study history and go into detail, that's Papal Rome and the Catholic Church. I hope I'm not offending anyone, but if they really had to go into detail and research it, they'll see how that church, Mystery Babylon, deceives the whole world. And it even goes back to the Sabbath, or seventh-day Sabbath, because they're the ones who actually changed the Sabbath from the seventh day to the first day of the week. And it's a lot of research and a lot of things I can say, but I know the time is up and you probably want to take another caller, but I just started listening to you guys last week because of Steve and Russ, and I'm just getting all of you guys and saving you to my favorites, and I've been listening and reading, and I appreciate what you guys are doing. I can't do it. I don't have the opportunity to do it, and I've been praying for you guys, for your protection, and I just want you guys to keep up the good work, and I'm definitely listening, and I'll be calling back again. So thank you for your time, and God bless.
What a wonderful call. God bless you. Thank you. All the way from Virgin Islands.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
How great that is. And you know what? It's once again, folks, I just personally, and then Joe can close this out, but we are a family here, and we cover a lot. We covered a lot of ground, didn't we? I mean, we covered a lot of information. Didn't answer a whole lot of questions. Raised a few contentious issues. Raised a few questions. Entered into some territory we haven't entered into before.
Yeah, we got to use discernment now more than ever. We got to stay in the Word. We got to stay grounded. Because if we don't have that, we're not going to make it in this messed up, twisted, upside down world.
No. You know what? We are thankful that we have such a wonderful listening audience and such wonderful callers, and information that we have to uplift everyone, and we have to stick together and unite in the Word of God and use discernment, as you said, Joe, because now more than ever is a time of betrayal, of distraction, detraction, and
and we're going to take it day by day, and we'll be right here with you. And I want to say thanks to each and every one of you for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow night, God willing. I hope all you have a good and safe night, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Good night.